We are 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we are live. We are, and it actually starts live before it shows it. So now I know. So ATM Hotep, welcome in peace. This is Sunday open discussion. This is a time and show that we normally don't have. This is completely out the blue. Just wanted to go live and have an open discussion and kind of hang out. So any and everybody is welcome to join the panel, contribute to the conversation, the discussion. Now we do want to keep it within, some relationship to ancient Egypt or Kemet, the language, culture, something around there. We don't want to talk about Twinkies and stuff, kind of keep it topical, but it's open. So I'm going to post a link in the chat right now in case anybody who's clicked the link and tuned in already. Let me get that link right now. Okay, and I believe I'm going to have to switch to pin it up. So give me 1 second. Yeah, so the floor is open. Reni Wujau. My name is Wujau Menib Edi Ma'at. The full name. A lot of people just say Wujau. And others are on the panel. So maybe, you all can introduce yourselves. And if anybody want to drop a topic first, it's like we're playing cards. You want to drop your card down first. We're playing spades. You want to drop it down first and start it off. Go for it.
Hotep, Ren-E Imiket. My name is Imiket, and yeah, welcome.
Hotep. This is Brother Chris.
Hotep. This is Gideon Zane. And I don't have a topic yet, but I got one later on.
All right. Okay, yeah, and we have Sister Mika, who is working 7th shift, I think. 5th shift, 7th shift. She's been to work since since April 11th. Haven't been home yet. Putting that OT of OT. Double time, triple time, overtime. All right. So yeah. All right. So listen, I posted the link to the panel link. And let me pin it. Okay, so it is pinned. The link is pinned. So if you are available, come on the panel and drop a topic. This is open discussion. All right. Now, everyone who's familiar and already subscribed to our channel, you know what we deal with. So when we say open discussion, not like completely open. Like I said, we don't want to talk about Twinkies and cupcakes, but we want to have an open discussion about anything dealing with Kemet. All right. Ancient Egypt, Kemet, the people, the language, the claims that are being made around it, through it, above it, under it. All of that. Egyptians, black, pink, red, purple, blue, white. Are they gay, straight? Are they polyamorous? What haplogroup they have? What? People ask all those questions. Did the aliens build the pyramids? Were the Egyptians aliens? Maybe they were aliens. That's why they vanished. Maybe, have anybody ever thought about that? The Egyptians were aliens themselves, and then they did their thing and they left. I might start that. I might start that off.
I think they went to Mars.
They went to Mars. Okay, you remember the face on
Yeah,
Mars,
you know
right?
they have some. Yeah, you know they had the face on Mars, so that's their pinpoint location.
Yeah, the face is really a sphinx. That was their first sphinx. Hmm. Okay, maybe so.
And they shift in between Orion's belt. You remember that
Uh
from the pyramids of Giza?
huh. The Pyramid of Giza. Hmm.
But I did have one little random question. Didn't they invent beer?
Invent beer. Now,
Yeah.
invent like for the first time. I'm not too sure at this moment if invented beer, but I believe so. But I can't speak on that and offer anything at the moment.
Mm.
As far as the invention of beer, I haven't really looked into that because I mean I've heard that. So you're asking. I've definitely heard that, but I don't. I don't have information to kind of elaborate or spread or speak on that. Beer is definitely
Yeah, I think I heard it once before.
say it again.
Nah, I was saying I think I heard it once before. That's what it just came in my mind. Like that.
Yeah, but
I'm
now
not sure they.
it's prevalent in pretty much all the offering formulas. The word for beer is Henket, bread and beer, but it wasn't Heineken and things like that. But it was a form
Right.
of beer.
Yeah.
I see somebody asked, do they have an equivalent or to pop culture? So that's interesting. Pop culture as in popular culture. Or pop culture as in with some elements of what we see in our current pop culture.
I'm trying to see the comments now. Okay. Now hold up. I noticed that when you all are talking, the screen is not changing. So I just want to make sure that we are getting a good view of everybody. All right. So I think that is fixed. So what was the question? Was it a question?
Yeah, it was a question by Aaron Edwards. Said, did they have an equivalent to pop culture? So I was just asking if it's pop culture with meaning as in a popular culture, as or pop culture, the equivalence as in with some elements of what we see in our pop culture today. In that sense, comparing that or comparing the fact that they had a popular culture at
Oh, okay.
Okay, it says like music and celebrities. Oh, I know you've gone through, you've elaborated this, so you might want to answer that. I think it says like music and celebrities.
Oh, I see what he's saying. Um, did they have those type of equivalencies? Yes and no. So they definitely had music. They had hymns, they had songs, they had instruments, musical instruments, and a lot of festivities and festivals. That was part of the unification tools when you set and establish holy days that we call them today holidays, holy days, and you anchor them into a calendar where everybody is performing or observing the same thing at the same time. That in and of itself is a tool for unification and synchronicity. This is what keeps people unified and synchronized. And so during those festivals and things, they had music, hymns, singing, reenactments, food, and all those kinds of things that were going on. As far as celebrities, now this is interesting because celebrities, we say the word celebrity loosely, but celebrity is to celebrate someone, and a celebrated person is a celebrity. And what and in a lot of indigenous cultures, celebrityism, um, I know there's no such word as that really, but the idea of celebrityism was well guarded in indigenous cultures because of the fact of how celebrities are influential. And if the celebrity is not in alignment with the way that the culture has been, used as a guideline and guidance, then that celebrity or celebrities can influence people to veer off the path and veer off the mark. And so the idea of being an influencer was guarded. So not anybody and everybody could be an influencer in many indigenous cultures. It was filtered, it was kept in check. So like today is the opposite. Anybody and their mother and father can become a celebrity. You can buy a cheap web camera and create a YouTube account and become instantly influential based on what you do. Whether it's good, bad, good for the people, good for the whole, good for the long haul, good for the short term, long term, whatever the case is, you can go viral and become a celebrity or influential now and go totally unchecked, and so that's completely different. And we really need to get back to proper screening of influencers. So I always use music as an example, the music industry. If you compare the Motown days, the golden age of Motown versus the music industry today, you can see a stark contrast. Whereas with Motown and Berry Gordy and the team, they actually, cultivated etiquette. They cultivated a lot of things that are missing now. You had very, very good quality songwriters. Like a lot of people don't know, but Smokey Robinson wrote a lot of Motown songs for other Motown artists that are equally famous. Marvin Gaye and the Supremes, Diana Ross Supremes, and all these other people. Smokey Robinson wrote a lot of those songs, and Berry Gordy. But anyway, my point though is that he had an assembly line where these singers were taught how to eat at a formal table, how to walk, how to dress, how to conduct themselves in an interview, how to take pictures, and they had dance routines, where they were synchronized and all these kinds of things, so the quality was there. Everything was kept in check. Everything was outlined and there was guidance there. But today, everybody's all over the place in music. And so the quality is totally different, but it's in demand. So the industry follows whatever's in demand because it's capitalism, it's money. People are trying to grab that money. But anyway, I'm just saying that to say that celebrities are treated differently today than they are in indigenous cultures, even ones that are still here today. And in Kemet, the highest celebrity were the gods. Okay, the highest influencers are the gods of a particular culture. They're your top tier influencers right there. So the Netcheru are your celebrities. Heru was very, very popular. Man. Heru, paparazzi would be all over Heru. And Usir, Aset, Atum, Ra, Satuk, Sekhmet, Ptah. Those are the ones a lot of people are familiar with. Amun, Geb, Newt, Tefnut, Shu. So anyway, I'm just saying, those are your celebrities, the Netcheru.
Nefertiti with Beyonce one.
Nefertiti being Beyonce. Nefertiti. So again, I want to welcome everybody to the channel and to this discussion. It's an open discussion. Today is Sunday. I posted the link if you want to come on the panel. There's an open invitation for you to come on the panel. Yeah, and so you could bring your topic with you, bring your suggestion, bring your bring information, and it's open discussion. But obviously, we're going to try to keep it within something remotely related to Kemet, ancient Egypt. We don't want to go way.
I got a quick question.
Yeah.
My bad. Peace, how you doing? This is Nausra. My question is pertaining to the Valley of the Kings and the 12 hours of the Duat. I just want to, you know what? I want to make it an open question and just ask you, like, what is your take on it? Because my take is that it's talking about what happens after, what happens after we die, and it gives you the 12 hours. And I just wanted to know if that was right and I was on point, or is something I'm missing, just get your take on it.
Okay, so that's a good question. And that's actually one of my focuses is on the Duat text, the afterlife text and things like that. And in my studies, I've learned very early that a full-on conversation about it is really how you deal with it. And so we would probably do better at like narrowing a specific topic and having a whole show about that one topic, as opposed to like this open discussion. But to address what you're saying, though, in a kind of brief way, is that the Duat, or what we translate as the underworld, is also the behind world, but underneath consciousness. So the Duat, or the underworld, is something that we would call under or sub, and we say subconscious. So we enter, things happen behind our backs that we're not aware of, but yet we're responsible for, so to speak. And so, for example, the example I always give, hold up, somebody came in and probably need to mute themselves. Let's see, who is that? And it had to be Morpheus, Hotep Morpheus. No, I muted your mic because it was a noise. So you can unmute yourself when you're ready to talk. But so let me just give this example. So all of us eat food, right? We eat food. We make a conscious choice, what we want to eat, how we prepare it, put it on a plate, put a certain portion on a fork or a spoon. We put it into our mouths. We chew it up, and we do all of that consciously. Like we intentionally and consciously do that. But once it enters your mouth and you swallow it, then all of the processes after that happen behind our back. We don't have control over that. We don't have conscious control over that. The enzymes, the hormones and enzymes and the secretions, the breakdown, the turning into food into chum, and it's being acidic, going into your intestines, getting sodium bicarbonate from the pancreas. All these different processes to digest something is occurring in our bodies. So we're doing it, but we don't know that we're doing it. We're not in control of it, but it's a part of us. So, and I only use that as a very brief example of the power and the activities that take place with us, by us, but behind our back, so to speak, underneath our consciousness, in our subconscious. These are things that are taking place, we don't have any control over it. And so knowing how powerful that is a very, very powerful thing, to the activities that are taking place. What we're conscious of is very, very small compared to the things that we're unconscious of, but still responsible for in that sense. And so that's a very, very powerful. So Usir is the deity over that subconscious, and Heru is the deity over the living or the conscious. So you have this woke or awake state, and then the subconscious state. And so these deities govern both of those states. And so the duat and the gates and the hours and things like that are the different processes that take place in those different realms. It's not a place like heaven where people going to die and go to a physical place somewhere out there in the sky and space somewhere. No, all of these things take place in the mind. Every single experience we have is really an experience because we experience things inside our mind. Even when you smell, taste, touch, taste, see, hear, and smell things, those things are taking place in our minds. These are just input devices to the inner world of our mind. And in Rodney Kemet, it's called Ib. Everything takes place in the Ib, in our Ib. That's why your Ib is weighed against a guide and rule called the feather of Ma'at on the scales. And so the essence of us, that Ib, that place where all these activities are taking place, where all decisions are made, is evaluated and analyzed by who? By you as Usir, your ultimate judge, because only you can judge yourself. So you are in control, but you're not aware of it. And so the Amduat and all these different texts summarily will explain these things that I'm saying.
So you said the ib, and so I take it as the heart, but then right before you said the ib, you said it everything, like basically like the universe is mental, like all of it takes place in the mind. And so is it safe to say that you're saying that the heart and the mind are one and the same, and it's not the brain and the mind?
No, the glyph of a heart is used to represent the word for mind. So the heart itself, the organ, the blood pumping muscle organ is not the mind. It's just that the image of that, of a heart, is used for the word ib, which means the mind. So don't confuse the two. Like our heart, our heart is an organ. It pumps blood. It works off electrical impulses and things like that. Works off electricity, and all of that good stuff. But it's not the mind. No. But the reason why there's a play in there, correspondence there, is because the heart, the organ heart, is the central organ of our body, and it's responsible for the circulatory system, which moves blood, which delivers life, the life giving elements we know as oxygen to the rest of our body, and then it removes the carbon dioxide and stuff. That heart is responsible for all of that. And death is really the moment of cardiac arrest, when your heart stops pumping and the blood stops being able to circulate. So that becomes the essence of our life. But the essence of us ourselves is our mind. So the word ib means the essence of something, which for us is our mind. And physiologically, the essence of us, or that central organ, is the heart. That's why even we even use it in a metaphoric way when we say, or figurative way, when we say things like, I'm going to get to the heart of the matter, or I'm gonna get to the nitty gritty, or the heart. Like, we want the innermost core of something, and that is the organ of the heart physiologically. But psychologically, or dealing with our being, then that's the mind. Because without the mind, nothing would take place for you. Everything takes place in the mind. Everything.
I think the heart is also the first developed, the first thing that develops. I'm not sure exactly. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
I think it's the fourth week or something like that. I looked it up a few times. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm not too sure about that right now, but yeah, I'm just saying. So yeah, we have to separate the organ of the heart versus the word for heart, or the word ib, meaning the mind. Okay, so we have to make sure we keep that separated. But back to what I was saying, though, the duat is The underworld. Like you have to think about it. Why is that translated as underworld? Why can't it be otherworld or just heaven? But it's translated as underworld. Something caused these scholars and translators to say sub, which is the word for under, under. And so you reach the underworld through the west, and you travel through these caverns or gates, which have hours, 12 hours, usually 12, and they're guarded by a deity, each of these gates, and you have to know the certain words, passwords to get through the gate and to do some, perform something, and then get to the next gate, and so on and so forth.
Masonry.
Say it again.
It says Freemasonry.
Well, yeah, similar
Yeah.
to that. But see, these things are for the living, because nobody's going to be reading anything and doing anything, reciting anything when you're dead.
Have you ever watched a movie and then went to sleep and then sort of dreamt about that movie or something like that? Right.
Yeah.
And then I feel okay, so whatever we, subconsciously, want to sort of call that, I feel like that is, we're noticing something that other people, or maybe a long time ago, or maybe even some people today, might really understand and know how to utilize and control it, right? Whatever that is. So maybe if it's possible, they may have knew that. And if you're able to hammer that in or watch it like we sort of watch a movie, it may have had the same interaction, or may have caused the same effect that we have when you dream or watch things. It may have caused that same effect, but they're not watching, and they were reading that, and we were kind of like watching the things that we're watching. So it might have been totally different effect that it might have had on them, doing and reading those powerful things like that over and over. And so it might have had some effect into what happened to you, possibly in your afterlife, of course. Would you say so?
Okay. See, you're gonna see. You know what? I know the risk of doing open discussions. I listen. I know when we do open discussions, when we kick them off, I know the potential for how the conversations can go and everything. And it's nice, but I just want everybody to understand that when I'm involved with open discussions, or if I kick off an open discussion, I just want everybody to understand that a lot of questions or topics that will come up in these kind of discussions, some of these topics deserve its own isolated discussion, like what you just said will probably be a good 2-hour conversation, like really. And I'm not exaggerating. People may not realize that, but I'm telling you, a lot of things that pop up deserve its own show. And I like this because it gives ideas for shows, right? So I take notes on what's discussed, what's asked, what's shared by people and stuff like that. So I just want to put that out there. But so let me just say this, because sometimes I try to just throw some things out there to prep for a longer discussion in the near future. But here's the thing: the way the mind works is, we have what's called will, and everybody's familiar with will. Most people will say it is free will. But what is will itself? I'm just going to ask the panel. What is will itself? What is will? If you had to, give a brief, description of will, what is that?
I would say it's the ability to choose.
Yes. Stop there. That's enough right there. Will is the ability to choose. That's what will is. And so when we say free will, it's like a redundancy, because the will itself is free. So we don't have to say free will. Okay. Because in order to choose, what's inherited in choosing is freedom. Because if you didn't have freedom, then there's no such thing as a choice. So I want everybody to understand that. Matter of fact, how you even know is when think back like last year or 2 years ago when Kanye made that statement about slavery and all that, and everybody just blew up on him, remember? And it didn't have a choice. It didn't have a choice. This, that, and the third. Yeah. So people don't believe me. Go back to Kanye's videos and stuff. But the will itself is free. So free will, is a redundancy. But anyway, I'm saying this because the will in being free, it can't be caged. It can't be coerced. If it does, if it feels that it's being controlled, coerced, or caged, it will rebel. And the flip side of the will is stubbornness, being stuck, stubbornness, and all of that good stuff. So now I'm leading up to how the mind works and how you program it, because you can't program it directly, because your own will, your own faculty of choice is going to rebel against that. So what happens is the will has to be partially paralyzed so that it can't resist, it can't push back. And so the brain, we have different brain states that are measurable, quantifiable, and psychologists and neuroscientists, they do this all the time with the EEG readings. I believe that's what it's called. It's abbreviation for something that I don't know top of my head, but they know that there's certain distinguished brain states, and they give them Greek names for these different states, such as theta, alpha, beta, gamma, and delta. So, and you can look this up. And so the beta state is AKA the woke state, our awakened conscious. Like right now, as I'm talking and you all are listening and we're functioning right now, we're in beta state right now, the beta brain activity. When you go below that, alpha, that's when you start to go towards sleep, daydream, all that other kind of stuff. The further down you go, you get into sleep, and then even to coma like, and all this other kind of stuff. The lower you go, the higher you go. Gamma is the highest. Gamma is a heightened brain state that is brought on. That state is brought on through trauma on the negative side, or euphoria on the positive side. So I'm saying this to say that certain brain states are conducive for programming the mind. And if you going back to what you were saying, if you watch a movie before you're going to sleep, you're traveling from one brain state into another one where your mind becomes open and vulnerable for programming, because your will is partially paralyzed. And so you're bringing input in to your subconscious unabated. And so when you wake up, your subconscious has all of these inputs and programming done to it without the filters. And so then you'd be wondering why in the middle of the day, all of a sudden you're thinking about this, you're thinking about that, because you programmed your own mind unknowingly just by going to sleep with the TV on and things like that. So I'm just saying that there's a whole lot to this, and I'm just being brief to kind of talk about it, to address it a little bit. But these are things that we can do intentionally and leverage and utilize to our benefit. So one of the intentional things that people do along the lines of what I'm explaining is what everybody knows as meditation. Meditation is a tool to program the mind, but people may not use it that way. A lot of people think of meditation as just relaxation, but it's not. It's much more than that. Meditation is actually a tool that you use to program your mind. You could program bad habits out of the mind and good habits in the mind, all through proper use of the tool that we call meditation, because what you're doing is meditation involves doing things to put yourself into a state where your will is partially paralyzed, but not totally, because the total paralyzation of your will of consciousness is when you're asleep, and you can't do that yourself. So meditation.
Whoa.
Go ahead.
So what is mind? What is actually the mind? What is it consist of? What is the, like, is it a concept? Is it a belief, something of what the mind is? What is, if you had to define mind, what does it consist of?
Man, Morpheus is in the purple room, chilling, lean back, and got the nerve to ask me about the mind.
Is it like the cloud in the internet, like the cloud we use?
No. So listen, everyone knows that the field of psychology is the study of the human mind and behavior. And so we're talking psychology now when we asking these kind of questions about the mind. And psychologists are still at it, trying to wrap their minds around the concept of a mind to properly, definitively define it. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend to be able to give a definitive definition of the mind. But what we do know about the mind, what we're calling the mind, is that this is the area of experience, because we experience everything in our mind, what we're calling a mind. We know it's an abstraction, but we're experiencing everything in the mind. And when I say in, I'm not talking about in a place, but in the mind. And so that we call in the mind is where these things are taking place. And so, I would have to explain a whole lot to bring it to the threshold of what psychologists know, but they don't have a definitive consensus, a universal definition of the mind. They got some, some good, what do you call it? Good candidates that a lot of people are jumping on board with. But
what did it come in Kemet? Did they have a concept of their mind inside their within their paradigm, their teachings, or so? Did they have some type of idea or thought of what they thought it was?
Yes.
Okay.
And so the mind is okay. Man, see, this is what I'm saying. See, y'all, this is what I'm talking about.
We're giving you ideas for shows, bro.
No, I know, but I'm trying to. I want to do it a little bit of justice right now. So, okay, let me do this, because I was gonna go there, but okay. So let me just finish up what I was saying, because I'm gonna go right there for a hot second. So, remember what I said: the brain states, the mental states or brain states that we all go through. If you are a young child,
right? Okay.
Yeah, we have theta, and I could be saying them out of order. I know beta is the awakened state. Gamma is the heightened state. When you go below beta, between delta and theta, I get those confused. I may have those swapped, but anybody can Google this as I'm talking right now. And so, the beta state is the awakened state. That is the worst state to be in, to try to program good habits and to break bad ones, because your will is fully functional and it will resist. It will feel like it is being coerced and it will resist. This is why bad habits are very hard to break when you consciously try to break them. So you have to fool yourself, so to speak. So you have to do it while your will is partially paralyzed. And so back to what I was saying about meditation. Meditation is a tool. And the goal of meditation is to put yourself in a state where you can program the mind, AKA spirit, as some people like to say. So But how do you do it? So meditation involves certain things you have to do, such as breathing, because certain breathing techniques and the repetitions and stuff like that will induce a state, put you in a state. And so this is where it becomes, beneficial and not some spooky stuff that people just talk about and all these different things we hear.
Makes me think of right now when you said that of an old saying that said, "Mind your mind, or your mind is mine."
Yeah, mind your mind for the jewels of your souls. I know I hear that a lot.
I was told, "Mind your mind, or your mind is mine."
Right, mind your mind, or your mind is mine. But okay,
wait. I'm sorry. You said something that was kind of deep to me. You said something about your will. You said in order to transform or in order to change or stop doing something, you said you have to do it when your will is paralyzed, or you didn't use that. You said you have to do it. Yeah. Is that what you said?
So meditation, what you were just saying, well, what state is that? Is that theta when you're meditation?
No, the one below beta.
Because beta is your awakening state, right?
Right. The state below that, and I believe it's alpha. That's what I'm saying. Somebody can fact check me on that, because I may have the order incorrect, but I know beta is the awakened.
Let me check that.
Beta is the first step, then you have alpha, and then theta, and then delta.
Okay, Dua. So delta is very dangerous to work with, because delta, you're completely wide open, and it's not something to play around with.
When people get hypnotized, is that where they take them into delta?
Theta or delta, yes.
Yeah, so you have theta, that's you're deeply relaxed, and then delta, that's where like you sleep.
So when people get hypnotized and they go and get hypnotized, they're in a state of, I'm getting confused.
No. See, when people are, the art of hypnosis, the science and art of hypnosis is a person's ability to manipulate you to bring you to these other states.
Right.
Okay. Now, depending on what state will depend on the skill and what the intentions are, but they can bring you to alpha, theta, or delta. And you can't play with that. You have to trust the person and all that, because these things are real states that we go through. And there's consequences to being in each one of these states. So, and if people don't understand or don't even believe that, that's fine. But it happens whether you believe it or not, because here's the thing. When you sleep, somebody just brought it up. You can watch a movie. That's why it's advised that you do not sleep with the TV on, because you want a very tranquil sleep. You want to turn off all the lights, all of the music, all of the distractions, because you don't want it to quote unquote disturb your sleep at all. And you don't want to inadvertently program your mind, or what people like to say, program your spirit subconsciously behind your back. And then later on, you're going to get these impulses percolate to the surface, which is your conscious now, because now you're above ground. Because now, mind you, these are all metaphors, spatial words used metaphorically. So above ground meaning conscious, below ground is subconscious. And so above ground is the land of the living, below ground is the land of the dead, but not literally. It's the subconscious realm. So
how does that tie into what you were saying about the duat?
Because the duat is that below ground.
Okay.
The duat is below the horizon. Remember, Heru dwells where Heru ends is Heru Aketi. People pronounce it as Harakti. That deity, where he ends, is the horizon. That's why it's Heru of the horizon. People think that Aketi means two horizons, but it's a Nisbi, meaning he who is of the horizon. And so he ends there. And that's where your consciousness ends. And below that is subconscious. And you get there to the west. And the foremost person, prominent deity there is Usir, Kinti Amentiu, the foremost of all of the Westerners. Anybody who's traveling in that is governed by Usir.
And another world is the same thing.
Right, it's the same. Duat. I mean, they translate it as the netherworld, but it's the same word, Duat.
Gotcha.
And the book called they say Amduat. That's from Budge, but it's really Duat, that which is in the Duat. That's what the whole text is about. Things that take place below the land of the living, below consciousness.
Emi Duat.
Right, Duat. But most people pronounce it as Amduat, the book of the Amduat, but it's really Duat. Okay, so so what I'm saying though is that I'm trying to tie it into the whole mind thing. So remember, the ancient Egyptians, they looked at being, like the human being, but being itself as a composite entity, not this homogeneous one thing. And so a lot of people are familiar with this, but they may not connect the dots in this way, that the being is composed of several different entities. One is called the Khat, which is more so the aggregate physiological cells and organs of the body. Then you have the Kayabit or Shut, which is the shadow. Then you have the Ka. Then you have the Ren. You have the Sahu, Ib, Ak, Sekhem, Ba. You have all these different components that make you in totality. And each one of these components have a different function and they all work together. They're all interrelated, interconnected. And so the Ib part of you is your experiential environment, your world. That's the seat of the will. And the deity that governs that is Heru. Okay, so there's deities that govern each one of those things I said, but I'm just giving one. Heru governs that Ib, the will. And you can see this is how you can confirm it, because even in all of the text, let me ask you this. So remember my statement. Heru is the deity over the will. And I asked you, and Morpheus, you answered correctly. You said the will is what? What is that again?
The ability to choose.
Okay. The will is the ability to choose. Now on the streets, we would say it differently. We would say the will is what? The shot caller, right? The will is the shot caller. It makes the choices, right? The ability to choose. Okay. So now Heru is the deity over the will. But Heru is also over many other things related. So let me ask you this. In ancient Egypt, Kemet, who is the top person who exercises their will over all other people? I'm talking about a real person, not a deity, real person. Who?
So,
King.
Yes, the king. Remember, the king is the highest representation of the people. And the king is a living Heru. Am I right or wrong?
That's right.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, so the king being a personification of Heru simply means that the king is the one who is responsible for exercising the choice on behalf of the people and in care of the people. So the institution of kingship itself is governed by Heru, given to him by his father Usir, who was also given that responsibility by his father Geb. Okay, Geb, Usir, and then Heru. And so Heru is the deity over the institution of kingship, and the king is a personification of Heru. because of that position of exercising the will, being the ultimate manager, the ultimate boss, the ultimate coordinator. The king is the one who coordinates all the different components of the kingdom. And that's what our will does, which is the ib part of us in our being. Not just our physiological part, but our total being. The ib is the control center. That is central command. Okay. And it's represented by the heart, which is another reason why they left the heart in the body. They didn't discard the heart when they mummified the body and so on and so forth. That's a whole, like I said, whole conversation.
Yeah. Because you brought up a good point just now too about that. That I always thought about. Well, people come and talk about the pineal gland and all this stuff, and I used to say to myself, well, so if it was so important, why did they discard the brain?
Exactly. The pineal gland, the pituitary gland, all of that went in the garbage.
Yeah.
To the ancient Egyptians. And so all the people who are on the third eye and say the eye of Horus is the third eye, which is equivalent to the pineal gland and stuff like that, they really have no basis for that. They use a cutaway of the brain, that sideways profile cutaway, and then because of the eye can overlap it and stuff, they say, see, it's the pineal gland and this and that. And no, there's nothing in the text that will support that. The brain was grinded up and sucked out of the nose of the person. It was scraped out of the nose of the deceased person.
Yeah, so it couldn't have been all that important.
Right. The heart was left intact. And in fact, a scarab beetle with a certain spell or utterance written on it was put over the heart while being wrapped up in the mummy linen. And there's reasons for all of this. And so this is the thing. And so a lot of stuff that people avoid, don't know about and not familiar with, is a lot of things deal with psychology, what we today we call psychology. Because psychology, the psyche, spirit, or the mind. Spiritus is wind. Ruach in Hebrew, nephesh, all these different words, they identify with different aspects of the wind movement, the animating aspect of things. And so this ib, going back to the ib part again, the ib is the part of being that is the seat of consciousness, or the command center and control center. And Heru governs that. And there's a lot of words in the language that reflects what I'm saying. I go over some of them from time to time. Like min-ib. Min-ib means, the word min means to be stable. It's a horizontal stability. Okay. It prevents you from moving up or down. Jed is also a word for stability, but that's to prevent you from moving left or right, because Jed is an upright stability. Jed is a vertical stability. Min is a horizontal stability. And so min-ib is to stabilize your mind. And a person with a stable mind, on the plus side, we can translate that or interpret that as confidence. On the negative side of the same thing, we can translate that or interpret that as stubbornness and arrogance. Somebody who's stuck, who has a stable mind, who's stiff in their mind, that's a stubborn person. Or is somebody who knows what they're talking about and they're confident. So it can go either way. But these words are reflective in the language to show you that the Egyptians were all about that mind. So much so that every Book of the Dead, the judgment scene that everybody's familiar with, is a weighing or an analyzing of the content of the mind, not the heart. See, the heart is the glyph for the word ib, which means the mind. So the mind is being judged, not the organ of a heart. So that Book of the Dead scene, chapter 125 of the Book of the Dead, is a psychoanalytical tool. It is a self-diagnosing tool so that you can always be on point with the content of your own mind and shake away guilt, which is represented by Amit, the amalgamated beast that you see in the imagery. Y'all familiar with that lion, crocodile, hippopotamus creature, right?
Yeah.
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 Okay, so that is Amit, and that word Amit, it means the devourer or eater, because Amit or means to eat, and so we still say it to this very day, 3,000 years later, we still use these concepts. Because if you do something wrong by somebody, if you're doing something to somebody and you know it's wrong and everything, and you shouldn't have done it, what do we say? We say, man, that's been eating me up. I need to apologize. That's eating me up. Like, I feel guilty. That's eating me up. Now we know that's not literal, but what it
Oh,
is,
it's heavy on my heart.
right? It's heavy on my heart. Exactly. It's eating me up. It's heavy on my heart. So the heart has a long history to be associated with the mind. Okay, the heart has a long history of being associated with the mind in a figurative way. And we still use it to this day. The Egyptians were just upfront about it. They're like, listen, the heart is the mind. The content of the mind has to be in accordance with what we consider the straightness or the guide called ma'at. And if it's not, your mind is going to be eaten by this creature. And that is just the simple way of saying guilt. You're going to be guilty. That's it. That's why they use words such as judge, weighing, judgment, and guilt, because we use it in the court system today. If you are found guilty, I mean, if you don't triumph at a trial, you will be convicted and found guilty. And so the Book of the Dead is conceptualized like a court hearing where you have the judges, you have these jurors at the top. Matter of fact, let me just show the picture of a famous one. Let me just see if I can find it real fast. As I'm saying it, people can visualize this. I have it. Let's see. Okay, here we go. All right, so you all should be able to see this right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is, matter of fact, this is from the papyrus of Hu-Nefer, the so-called Book of the Dead of Hu-Nefer. All right, and you can see his name. Matter of fact, let me take one of these arrows here. You see his name right here. The Osiris, or the Wusir, the royal scribe, Sesh Nesut, Hu-Nefer Macheru. So you see his name right in this column. And look, as well, it says the utterance, right? The Rani Ibi. So this is the words or the utterances of the heart ni of the Osiris, the royal scribe, Hu-Nefer, who is true of voice. So this is his heart speaking. But is it his heart speaking or is it his mind? You know how when we say, you know how we say to people, speak your mind. Get it off your chest. Why do we associate the mind with the chest so much? It's like, look, man, don't keep it in. Get it off your chest. Why don't we say get it off your skull? Why don't we say that? Get it off your skull. No, we say get it off your chest. Because again, there's the association with the heart in the chest and the mind. So anyway, his mind is giving testimony here. But what I want to point to is this last phrase, ma keru. Ma keru, the word ma means true. and Keru is voice. So it's saying that he's true of voice, meaning that he is triumph. He has triumphed over this session. And so this is what I mean, that these jurors, which is patterned out as like a jury, a court session, and the mind is on the stand at trial. You have the court stenographer, the reporter, such as Jehudi. You got the what's my man, the guys that be leading you in the court and taking you out. What's that?
Bailiff.
The bailiff or the marshals?
Yeah. Why do they have M? Is that Mpu twice?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you got Impu, you got Heru, and then if I move this all the way over, you got Usir, his two sisters / wife, and so on. You got the 4 sons of Heru here. You have Imseti. You have Happy. You have Duamatef and Kabesanuf. And you see their names in the glyphs right here. Usir, and then you have Osset and Nebet Hut. So, and then all these different deities up here. But back to my point, put this back right here. So, but my point though here is that this entire scene, people call it the whole thing, the Book of the Dead and all this. They think that they think that the Egyptians were spooky because they found these texts with next to dead bodies. They call them the Book of the Dead, and there's nothing really wrong with that. I don't know why people have a fit about calling it the Book of the Dead, as if that's wrong. It's not a complete description, but it's not wrong because it is a text that belongs to the dead person that it was found with, but being dead, they're not going to use it. No dead person is going to read this. All right. And if you believe that dead people can read and all that kind of stuff, then hey, good luck to you. Don't, I can't deal with you. But these texts were actually for the living while you were alive, as a psychoanalytical tool to judge or analyze the content of the ib, your mind. Okay, and it connects to there's another philosophy in Kemet, where people get this notion of know thyself. Y'all have heard of that before?
Yeah.
Okay, so where it say, man, know thyself and all that kind of stuff, brother, know thyself, or knowledge of self. Like we flip it and say knowledge of self, right? Well, guess what that self is? What do you think that self is in that phrase?
Oh, you said what I think
Your mind.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no, yeah.
In that phrase, the self would be the mind, because in Kemet, the phrase is Reki im ibi. And the word rek means to know. Reki, I know. M, which is within, that which is in. And then ib-e, my mind. So you're making a declaration that you know the content of your mind. And to know the content of your mind is to know yourself. Why? Because the self is outwardly expressed through the mind. And on the other side of the mind, so the self sits on one side, the mind in the middle, and then on the other side of the mind is what people perceive. And that becomes your character, your personality, and all these other attributes that people give. So you can know a person by their words and their deeds. And so this is why words are very important, and they're bound to your actions. And we say on the streets today, my word is my bond. But it's another way of saying an oath, taking an oath, because an oath is you simply binding your words. It's a verbal contract. You're binding your words to something, to action. And that's what all these things are related to. And so this analysis being done here in this scene is as if to say, the content of your mind and your deeds, do your words and your deeds match up? And so you make these declarations of innocence truthfully, because you cannot fool yourself. No one can judge you but you, you know? And so the deceased person, let me put this arrow on here. I want you to see, again, the deceased person is called Usir. All right. And for those people who may be checking this video out afterwards, if what I'm saying sounds far-fetched, I'm going to show you another one. I can show you a lot of them, but I'm just going to show you another one that I should have handy right here. Okay, this is a woman. I'm not even going to give her name away. But guess what? She is called, you see these glyphs right here that I'm pointing to? Right here.
Yeah.
Anybody that could read the glyphs, what is that? What is that word?
Wasir.
Who's there?
Oh,
Right. It's Wasir. Now, do you see it? You see it again right here, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but now this first one is identifying who? So so we're gonna read this, right? The first word is Usir.
Mm-hmm.
The second set of glyphs represents Hemet Nasut, which means royal wife, or some people may shorten it to say queen. Okay. The last word here is Weret, which means great. So it's actually saying the great royal wife. So this is the Osiris or the Wasir, the great royal wife or the great queen. Nebet, which is mistress or lordess, but we don't say lordess in English. The mistress, Tawi of the two lands. And then we have her name, Neferet Iri. Neferet Iri. So this is Nefertari Meretni Mut. So this is Nefertari, the beloved one of Mut. That's who this female is in this figure. So she is called Osiris. So Osiris is a title for both men and women. And so now I'm gonna go back to where I was at with this judgment scene, because I want everybody to understand what I'm pointing at. So here we have Usir. So this Osiris is the royal scribe. Instead of Hemet Nasut, this is Sesh Nasut. So instead of royal wife, this is royal scribe. Hu Nefer Makeru. See his name, Hu Nefer. And so these people are called Usir. Now notice that Enpu is leading him to the analysis we call a scale, and then Heru leads him to Usir, the deity, as the ultimate judge. But the understanding is that you cannot be judged by anybody else but you. Why? Because only you know you. And everything about you will testify to who and what you are. And that's why, and from the pyramid text to the coffin text to the so-called Book of the Dead, you have your own body parts that will speak out on your behalf. And when you read this right here, where it says this, his heart is saying this, the heart is saying, like Hu Nefer is saying, okay, I hope my heart don't testify against me. Don't, you know what I'm saying? Don't snitch. I hope my hands, I hope my legs, I hope my mouth, I hope my head, I hope my arms and all these different body parts, I hope they don't testify negatively for me. Why? Because only you know yourself. You can't lie to yourself. So all of these different deities that are in here are all transparent. These are all different aspects and components and elements of you. And like I said, I'm being brief about many of these things, but like I said, every aspect can have a full on conversation. When I talked about the self, there's a whole thing about how the ancient Egyptians saw our being, and how there was always a duality in the Egyptian world and their conscious worldview. Everything boiled down to a duality. Everything boiled down to a duality. And when that duality is broken, they made note of it. And I'm gonna tell you a deity. Let me ask you this, because one of y'all may already know this. What deity would reflect the breakaway of the norm?
Akhenaten. Well, that's not a deity, but I guess.
Yeah, he's a king.
Hey, well, I'm gonna have to watch from YouTube when I get a chance, because I got to do this project. Damn it! Thanks, brother. Peace, man.
All right, peace, man. Yeah, hey, listen, man. I see a setup there. And hey, listen, you down the street, so I'm gonna be.
I keep waiting for you to come through, bro.
All right, listen. I'll come through, because that's my thing right there, boy.
Come on through, man. Listen, I'm quiet over here. Nobody comes through here. I don't play around with, you know what I mean? I sent you my number, man. Just call me when you want to come through, man.
All right. Hey, I'm gonna take you up.
Yeah.
Take you up.
I'm probably about 15, 20, or 20 minutes from you, man. So knock it off.
All right, exactly.
Hey, I was telling Morpheus, I'm trying to get like him, man. He got the whole setup.
Hey,
Yeah, man. Come on, man. Come on, man. We all we got, man. We got to get it in and do some stuff, man.
Hey, and I still got some equipment, probably outdated, but it's up in the garage somewhere,
Oh, really?
Yeah, I got four ADAT. I got 4 8-track ADAT machines, and
Man, I just threw away 4 Tascam ADAT machines, man. I it's taking up space. DA88. I just got rid of them.
Oh wow, man. All right, so we're going all right, we'll definitely get together, man, for real.
Oh, all right, man. Peace and love, everyone.
Like Tascams, because I see he has a Tascam console right there.
Yeah, man. Come on, man. Let's do what we do. Whatever we got to do, we got the resources to do it.
The Emicat being quiet, Emicat has a degree in engineering.
I just heard it say, I see you got a custom. Actually, I got this is a Tascam Scorpion. Nice. I had this console ever since Rough Riders, when I did DMX first album. The same console.
Oh, okay. All right. Hey, man. All right. So hold up. See, you about to distract me. I'm about to whip out my whole music thing. So all right, we're gonna definitely get together, boy. We definitely.
Okay, man. Okay. Uncle Justin Ebb. Uncle Justin Ebb.
All right. Hotep. Peace.
Hey, Bujawa.
Yeah.
You used to rap or sing?
No, neither, boy. I was the man behind the board. I was an engineer, a recording engineer, and a mastering engineer. Now, I wish I could rap. I can coach. I was a recording engineer, so I would have to coach sessions, coach tracking sessions and stuff. So I did that, but I can't sing or rap.
Oh, okay.
No, if I did, boy, I'll watch out, boy. I got a lot to say. Well, hold up. What was I saying? I was saying something.
It's Set. It's not Akhenaten. It's Set. The one, the deity who you said would be synonymous with like Tyrion Part thing would be Set.
There you go, man. Right on point. There you go. Set or Satuk. Yes, indeed. But now, do you know why though?
I mean, because of what he did to his brother. And I mean, he wasn't really with unification. I mean, in terms of his character, he was more so with splitting apart and cutting his brother up and chopping them into 13, 14 pieces. And
all right, so hold up. So I'm gonna help you out. So you're absolutely correct. It is Set or Satuk. But now, what many may not know is the reason why, though. Like, we're familiar with the conflict that he had with his brother and Offset. Like he tricked his brother, chopped him up and killed him and all that kind of stuff, conspired, the whole conspiracy. But prior to all of that, prior to that story, like prior to that, that story is for another reason. So now check this out. Name I don't want you to figure out on your own, right? So name the family lineage that Satuk belongs to. Like name it from top down.
So start with Ra, and then go to Tefnut, Nut, Gib, Shu. No, Gib, Shu. Tefnut. Oh, Tefnut, Nut,
Nope,
Gib, Shu.
nope.
What? I'm missing something.
Oh, now you
Oh, Net.
I gotta get them in order now.
Yeah. Oh man. Okay. So goes Ra. Yeah. Then it goes Tefnut. Or the Shu and Gib. Go
Nope.
Shu.
No, remember,
No?
it's male. Just think of male and female if you want it to make it easier.
Okay. Okay.
Somebody in the chat, help them out.
Tefnut and Nut, right?
Or who else?
Yeah.
Who else is on here? You got we got Chris.
Okay, Geb is the earth and then Nut. Right? So it's Geb and Nut.
Okay. But you got Omar just helped you out.
Oh, he did. Where is it at?
Oh, you don't see the chat?
Oh no, I can't see it. I will have to go. Hold on.
Oh, you're on your phone.
Yeah, I'm on my phone.
Okay, don't worry about it. So he said Shu and Tefnut, or Tefnut and Shu. So that's a pair.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want you to see this pattern. I want you to see a pattern, right? So we have Shu, and then we have Tefnut. That's a pair.
Mm-hmm.
What's the next pair?
Then it goes Geb, which is the earth, and there's Shu, Tefnut, Geb, and Nut.
Right, Geb and Newt. Right. So So now you have another pair.
Mm-hmm.
All right, keep it going. What's the next pair?
And then it goes to like the Asar and Aset.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then who?
And then it goes to the children. Well, it would go to Set and Haru. Oh no, it goes to the daughters. It goes to right. No, Nebathith. I was gonna say Nebathith, and then I said, but I should say Haru, and I guess it doesn't really go. There is no another woman. It goes two sons. It goes Set and Asar.
Okay.
No, Set. Yeah. Set and Haru.
Okay, let me help you out. So we have Shu, Tefnut, Geb, Nut, Usir, Offset, Satuk, Nebet Hut. So, and I'll stop there because the pattern, okay, with Satuk, the pattern broke. And this is something that is overlooked, that Satuk breaks the pattern. And when you read the text, and matter of fact, I'm gonna do a show on this text. It'll be a quick show on the text that talks about Satuk's birth. Satuk's birth is described different than all the other ones. Where all the other ones, like for lack of longer explanation, all the other deities had a normal vaginal birth. Satuk was born through a C-section. And I don't mean that literally. I'm using that to show the difference of how this text describes his birth differently than the other deities. And so that difference in his birth, it broke the cycle. And that's the beginning of how Satuk got the bad rap. See, a lot of people don't know that. So that's the breaking up of that pattern. And I brought all of that to say that the Egyptians saw everything in a dual pattern. And Satuk is that glitch in the matrix. Necessary, but glitch in the matrix, broke the pattern. And so Satuk is the deity over they say over, you know, chaos or confusion, because chaos and confusion are not the same thing. But confusion, the desert, and all those kinds of things. Very manipulative, because the story, he manipulates Usir and he manipulates people to gain the throne. So the deity over manipulation and stuff like that. And so Satukians, or people who are Satuk-like, are people who are very manipulative, very, very shrewd, very, very like, it's not to say that they're dumb or anything like that. They're very smart and stuff, but they're manipulative.
Like
Okay.
Loki.
Say it again.
You're saying like Loki?
Okay, yeah, in the Thor, the whole Thor
Yeah.
song,
Yeah.
Loki. But yeah, so I see Phi Lightentis says C-section. So don't take that literally. I mentioned C-section to differentiate from vaginal birth that we do today. Vaginal birth, then some women have to get C-sections. But in the text that describes Satuk's birth, the words that are used for his birth differ than the word that is used for the other deity's birth. So it's a distinction being made in the text. Now, these deities are not real, so they didn't come through a vaginal birth literally at all. Nobody had a C-section, nobody had a birth, because these deities were not sentient, walking, breathing human beings to begin with. They, you know, we all should know that. So I don't want anybody to take what I'm saying literally.
Is it true that in the earlier dynastic, so-called dynastic periods, that they worshipped or exalted Set before Haru or something like that? I might have the story mixed up.
No, Satuk was yeah, he was definitely he wasn't always evil. Like, you know, that's something that we kind of throw on him, you know, and give him a bad rap totally. But you got to remember that even in the Abrahamic belief systems, that what we would like to call the devil and Satan and all that other kind of stuff, just understand that in every religion around the world, the equivalent of the devil in all these other religions, it's never destroyed. God never destroys, God of whatever religion never destroys the devil of whatever religion. Just notice that the devil always exists. God certainly has the power to kill the devil, eliminate the devil, wipe the devil out of the memory of everybody. Right now, God could snap his fingers right now and just erase the devil's existence out of the memory of everybody who's alive right now. But the devil persists and he lives because it's a necessary thing, because it's not real. It's not a reality, literally, a literal reality. These represent things. Just like in physics, you have entropy. So Satuk would represent entropy, which is a necessary for how the universe operates. You can't get rid of it, because by killing entropy, you kill the universe. By killing the devil, you kill God and everything else.
Exactly.
And the thing I realized is that the devil don't have a long a story as, you know, God or any other biblical character.
So,
But he had just he got like the second largest impact. Like, that's kind of weird.
but now remember, as far as Satuk is concerned, Satuk had a very beneficial, important role. He protected Ra against Apep. And some people confuse Apep with Satuk and stuff like that. So you have Ra and you have Apep, and then Satuk, who's supposed to be evil, but yet he's the protector of Ra during Ra's vulnerable times when he's in his night boat, weakened. And
I
Satuk
always like that picture.
steps in
Yeah.
and protects. Uh-huh.
No, I was just saying I always like that picture depicting what you're describing of them on the boat with the Sek, with the spear in the front of the boat, and
Yeah.
I think like Haru, and I can't really remember like who's all on there, but yeah.
Right.
What is entropy? I don't know what that means.
Okay, well, let's look it up. Let's get a very short, smooth definition of entropy.
Like thermodynamics or something.
Yeah.
It's like a rough situation. That's what I think I look at it as.
The measure of randomness in a system. Or some people say it's a measure of disorder in a system. But the disorder in the system, I guess that's the more common definition, but it measures randomness in a system.
Okay.
Yeah, I know something about it.
I guess I wasn't spelling it right because nothing came up.
And it only
Yeah,
increases for zero.
empathy.
Yeah,
That's crazy. Because if you
entropy, like if you want to spell it, entropy, entropy. And in physics, let me just read the formal definition from within the field of physics. It's a thermodynamic quantity representing the unavailability of a system's thermal energy for the conversion into mechanical work, often interpreted as the degree of disorder or randomness in the system. And so it's because of this that produces the multiplicity. So, like I said, these conversations deserve their own show, because we would have to get into how we exist in a simultaneous unity and multiplicity at the same time. And so the multiplicity is produced by this physics, this phenomenon that physics describes as entropy. And it produces what seemingly is randomness, but it's actually not.
Would that be the same as ISFET?
No, ISFET is disorder. So it can kind of overlap with that. Because, okay, here's the thing. When you think of chaos, let's go back to the basics, right? Most people think of chaos and confusion as synonyms. Am I right or wrong?
You're right.
mm-hmm.
Okay. But when you actually look into chaos and how that concept came about, it was actually a deity among the Greek pantheon and stuff. And we can look that up. Somebody look that up real quick. I mean, because right now we just hanging for a while, right? So let's look it up. So, because I don't want people to think that we're making up things over here. So look up.
No, I'm not doing any of that. I'm just asking
I
a question.
found it.
No. I'm not saying you are. I'm saying because we're on YouTube and people may watch this in the archive. When we're long done. I just want to make sure we have some references that we refer to and stuff, because I'm showing one on the screen. Like when I was talking about the Book of the Dead, the judgment scene, I pulled it up. I could show it. We could read the whole thing and read it in conventional Sesh Netcher, Ronnie Kemet, the whole thing. But
Indeed.
so anyway, I want to read. So so who is Chaos?
Chaos was the first of the Greek primeval gods and precedes the universe. He was followed in quick succession by Gaia, Earth, and Tartarus, the underworld, and Eros, love, the life bringer. Chaos was the lower atmosphere which surrounded the earth, invisible air and gloomy mist. It's a Greek, that's in Greek mythology.
Okay, so now, so did you see anything about confusion?
Confusion. I did. Where is it? Well, I'm not sure if this is what you're talking about. It just says chaos refers to the void state preceding the creation of the universe or the cosmos in Greek creation myths. See, no, this isn't the part. I read it somewhere, but I don't know for the confusion. I did think I came across that word somewhere.
All right.
Here. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll help
No.
out. Okay, no,
All
go
right.
ahead.
I thought chaos was like a random created force.
All right, so let's do it this way. Chaos itself, right, is a deity that has a story to it. So it's in a pantheon of gods that have relation, family lineage, as you were just saying. But the chaos itself, the word chaos itself in the Greek, it simply means an emptiness, an abyss. It's unformed. It's something that has no form. And the Rani Kemet or the ancient Egyptian equivalent would be Nu or Nun. And remember, in Egypt, everything comes out of Nu or Nun, because Nu or Nun is this undifferentiated, unformed or formless thing. And that is very, very hard to conceive in our minds, how something can exist but yet have no form. And because of that, that in itself causes confusion. Okay, so I just want to make that clear. It's not that it is confusion, because what it is and how we understand it are two different things. It causes confusion because we cannot conceive or perceive anything that has no form. And so the formless aspect of Nu or Nun is called Amen. Why? Because we can't perceive it. And Amen means imperceivable. But people like to translate it as hidden, but it means imperceivable. If it doesn't have a form, you can't perceive it. And that aspect of that is Amen. Okay, so I want to make that clear, but like I said, this may deserve a whole conversation, because you have to break down Nu or Nun and how Ra comes into play, and then Amen, imperceivable, and then the perception of that will be Sia. Sia is the personification or the deity of perception, and Amen would be the imperceptional, perceivable one. They say the hidden one, as if he's hiding. That's not the case. Like, I don't care if Amen is hiding or not. You're not going to perceive Amen. So Amen's proper attribute or definition is the imperceivable one, not hidden, to be, surgical with it. But hidden is a, we could say hidden and understand what everybody's means, but it's imperceivable. And so there's an imperceivable aspect of us. So everybody on this panel, I can't even see who's on the panel. Anybody else jump on the panel? By the way, the panel link is in the chat. So anybody in the chat room, right in the chat on YouTube right now, you're invited to come on here. So who do we have here? So we got all right. So everybody's pretty much here. Hotep Lisa. I told y'all. Watch for Lisa. Lisa will come up in here and not say a word.
Yeah, she like Batman.
Lisa come in here and just look up.
You gonna be in the room, you ain't gonna.
And I'm just listening. Okay, so here's the thing. Okay, so what was I saying? Boy, that threw me off. Oh, imperceivable. Everybody has an element or a component of being that is imperceivable. And guess what that part of you is? Anybody want to take a guess? Now, some of you on this panel, you heard me talk about this before. So
You don't mind?
you said what? The mind?
Yeah.
Nope.
Ib, you're Ib.
That's the mind. So nope, not that.
What was the question?
The heart. The heart. I thought Ib was the heart. My bad.
Nah, nope. So
What the question was, what part of us is inconceivable?
yeah,
What part of us is inconceivable?
imperceivable.
Oh,
Imperceivable.
imperceivable. What part of us is imperceivable? Perception.
Yep. That cannot be perceived.
Wow. I don't know. I don't remember you talking about that.
Your soul?
Nope.
Part of us. Part of us.
Oh, this is a good one.
Of us. It's imperceivable. I don't know.
All right. All right. I'm gonna think about it for a second and buy me some time to. I'm gonna show something on my screen that's gonna help you all figure it out on your own.
I don't know the birth.
We talking about the Akashic records or something? I don't know.
He said that. Boy, when all else fails,
Exactly.
let's go to the Akasha records and the Emerald tablets. Why don't we? To go to the Akasha. Okay.
We just got 1,000 more views now.
Yeah.
Exactly.
If you put crystals, meditation, chakras, and Akasha records all in the same title, boy, you're gonna have instant viral video. Okay, hold up. Give me a second. I have to because I actually talked about this many times, right? But here and there, I've never had a formal presentation on this because a lot of stuff that we're bringing up right now. That's why I like to have open discussions because it gives me a chance to see where everybody's interest is. More people, because like if I had it up to, if it was up to me, I would be talking about this stuff all the time and leave other stuff alone. But obviously you can't we don't live in a world by ourselves and stuff. So I like to see where other people's focus and questions and interests are. And so I think more and more people that bring these things up, then it's time to really dive in on it. Okay, so I'm gonna show this, and I think that okay.
You must have talked about it on Facebook. It wasn't on YouTube, was it?
Yeah, it's I it comes up every now and then, and I talk about it within videos. So you won't see it in a title or anything. It'd be something that I brought up, like right now. Okay, so I'm gonna do this. So what are y'all seeing on the screen? You still see that? Let me put it in here. All right, so that matter of fact, we were supposed to do a freestyle on this image right here. We didn't even get to that. So we'll save that for Freestyle Friday. Okay, but let me do this. I'm gonna show you. Wait a minute. So how am I gonna do this? Because I don't want to just like outright give it away. I want y'all to figure these things out. So give me 1 second. Duplicate that. Okay, take that away. Take all that away. And that. All right. So we're gonna start off with this. Yes, indeed. All right. So y'all are in for a little something. Okay. So you all see this on the screen.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So now this is a rough drawing of an eyeball. Okay, this is an eyeball in profile view. Okay, so you see the pupil and you see the eyeball. All right, so now I'm gonna use this to explain what I'm saying. And I'm gonna stop there and re-ask my question because I gave you a big hint by just showing you this right here. What there's an imperceivable part of you.
Self.
Now, I just said that people who have heard me talk about this don't say anything.
Oh, I didn't hear that part.
Just gave it away. So
What
yeah,
did you say?
it's the
Your eyes?
no, the self.
Okay.
But now I'm gonna explain why though, real quick. Now, let's imagine that the self is an eyeball. Now, there's a problem here that the eyeball, by its very nature, it is the organ of perception. Right? We all agree with that. It is made to perceive. But
Okay.
guess what? It can perceive everything except for itself. The reason why is because it itself is the organ of perception. So it can never perceive itself. So therefore, in my analogy or in my example, the eyeball itself is Amen, because it is imperceivable to itself. It can never, ever perceive itself, but it can perceive everything else. So whatever the eyeball is used to perceive as input can only identify the self or what it is by that which it sees, but never its true self, because it can never perceive itself. So I say all that to say that sounds like a bunch of mumbo jumbo, but the self tends to lean towards defining itself as a reflection of the things that it perceives, but never truly what it is. And why? Because it can't perceive itself. And this is referred to as Amen. It is the Amen component or principle of being. And so it is forever imperceivable. And this is why in the Egyptian text, Amen's true name is not known by anybody, not even the other gods. It says Amen, whose name is unknown. Now, the word name is the word Ren, and it's translated as name, which is no problem, but it's not complete. A more better definition of the word Ren is not necessarily name, but it's more appropriately should be as identity. So when they say Amen, whose name is not known, not even by the gods, what they're saying is that Amen's whose identity is unknown, even unto the other gods. Nobody can identify Amen because Amen is imperceivable. And I'm saying this because it ties back to Nu or Nun, that which has no form and formless. Anything that has no form or formless, it cannot be perceived. Therefore, the imperceivable aspect of it is Amen. And so Nu, everything comes out of Nu, because it's from the formless that forms take place. And they say order comes out of chaos, but chaos is actually not confusion. Chaos is actually no form, formless. And then something takes shape. Now, how do things take shape? So here's another thing. And, like I said, we can go into a long discussion, more elaborate discussion about these things. So I hope people just picking up these tidbits that I'm saying, and follow along what I'm saying. So I hope everybody understands and sees the truthfulness in this. So let me just go to here. So the I represents the self in this example. Okay. This whole concept of being imperceivable is Amen. Amen is a word that's translated as hidden, but it's better to apply it to imperceivable or imperception, right? Something that's imperceivable. The self can never perceive itself because it is the organ of perception. So the activity of perception is personified as a deity called Sia. Okay. And that brings about, it's through that deity that knowledge is known, because you only know what you come in contact with. The core spark of knowledge is contact. Do y'all follow that? Because it got quiet. Am I still on?
Yes, we're following, taking notes.
Yeah, just taking it in.
Okay, so
Yeah.
okay, now think about this. All right, let me think about this. Okay. When we say we know something, okay, knowledge is created through contact. Ultimately. Okay, I don't care what people think you believe and all that kind of stuff. Real knowledge is the point of contact. So, but what contacts? This is why we have 5 senses. We have 5 human senses. See, touch, taste, hear, and smell.
Smell.
Okay, it is through those 5 senses that we touch the universe. The external world outside of our mind comes into us by way of those input devices that we call 5 senses. See, touch, taste, hear, smell. All 5 of those senses is really contact. Because when you see something, light is making contact. When you smell something, odor is making contact. When you touch something, that's obvious, contact. When you hear something, sound waves are making contact. So, and taste, you're making contact. So at the core of all of our senses is one called contact. And so if you can't perceive it, I mean, if you don't perceive it, then you've never made contact with it. And so that's the core of it. And so what happens is when something doesn't have form, you cannot perceive it, and it's imperceivable. Now, it only takes form when it comes into existence by creating a limiter around it. And a limiter is a distinction. So let me ask you, so let me throw this question out there. I do this all the time, right? This is for everybody on the panel. Think about this. If you were the only thing that existed, absolutely nothing else existed but you, the question is, would you know that you exist?
No.
Okay, Kadeem says no.
Okay. Were there people at some point?
No.
It was always just me.
Nothing else, nothing but you, and nothing ever but you. You exist, and only you. The question is, would you know that you exist?
Nah, I couldn't even confirm what existence is.
Okay. Anybody else?
Man,
I
that's so
agree with what
lonely.
he said.
Yeah, I will agree too.
Oh, somebody said that's lonely.
Yeah, that's like a scary thought. Like I'm like,
How would you even know
dark.
he's lonely?
Yeah, like I don't know. Like even
It'd be
thinking
silence.
about it, I'm like, damn.
Yeah,
Nobody
that
ever
question
just
makes your head hurt, right? Because it just makes my head hurt when I think about it. Like
yeah.
confused a little bit. Like
But you know, hey, that's very interesting, because I've asked that question time, every now and then for quite a few years, right? And every time I go through a line of people to ask that question, one out of the people, whoever I'm talking to at the time, they say that what you just said. That man, to even sit there and contemplate, man, I feel like it's scary. Like I like
Yeah, okay.
you like.
I'm glad you said it. I thought I was tripping over here. I'm like, damn. So I was like, I don't even want to think about that no more.
Okay, but all right. So let's fast forward. So Kadeem, that's correct. You would not know that you exist. And the reason why is because you have nothing to make a distinction. Because remember, existence needs existence in order to exist. And I know that sounds crazy, but think it through and you're gonna see the what do you call it? Altruism in it. Existence needs existence in order to exist, meaning that you have to have something other than you to know that you exist, to make a distinction, to be able to say I am me and that is not me, or that is that and this is this. If you didn't have a point of reference to do that, you wouldn't know about any of that. And you know, if anybody who thinks that's far-fetched, think about this. If you never knew anything about, let's say, death, let's say you had no knowledge of death at all, never even knew the concept, the word, nothing, could anybody possibly threaten you with death?
No.
Exactly. So when you're oblivious to something, you're truly oblivious to it. So if there was nothing else as a point of reference to distinguish it from you, you wouldn't even know about you. And so the same concept is what I'm showing on the screen, is that the self needs other things to be able to identify itself.
Okay.
Okay.
Now I got it.
All right. So what tends to happen is the self starts to become defined not by what it actually is, but by that which is actually perceived. And so the self starts to become a person, which is not yourself. And so the whole idea about this saying that became popular, man, know thyself, it's an old philosophy of trying to tell and teach people, to remind them that that which you perceive is not you. So seek yourself. And so there's a whole process in order to, you know, bring this all about, which is a whole conversation in and of itself. But I'm saying that the person becomes the person that's perceived by everybody else. So we start to live and behave as a person and not the self. And so this is where we get into your character, your behavior, and your personality. And so the words for that tend to be translated. So we have the word ka in Egyptian language that people translate as the spirit, but they also translate it as a personality. Then you have the word ba, ka, and all these other words that overlap. Like the way that we talk about it, it overlaps. But no, these are distinct concepts and aspects of the understanding that these people had. Okay. Now, in order for something to come into existence, it has to be distinguished from all other things. And that distinction is brought about by creating a limit around it. So if I were to draw a circle, I think I have it here. So don't mind, because these are slides from similar explanations that I was given. But in order for something to exist, it has to come into being. And in order for anything to come into being, it has to have a limiter around it. Okay. The definition of the word definition is to limit something. Okay. And so to define something is to limit it. But what are you limiting it from? You're limiting it from everything else to bring about its identity.
Mm-hmm.
And so remember, I said the word Ren is translated as name, but it's better to be translated as identity, This is why in many African cultures, if you don't have if something doesn't have a name, it does not exist. And in reverse, if you want to make something existent, you wipe out its name. You erase its name. Because the name is the identity. Why? Because the name is brought about by this limit. And on this image here, I'm giving the Rani Kemet or Egyptian words for these concepts. So we have Jer, which means limit. We have Nebercher or Nebetjer, who is translated as a deity, translated as supreme being, but it's actually a phrase that means Lord in regards to the limits. So the owner of all these limits, which are definitions, and definitions are the things. This is how things come into existence. So the owner of all of those identities is the supreme being. And that's why they translate Nebercher as the supreme being. And when you read the Egyptian text that talks about creation, so-called creation, it is Nebercher that is the one who's doing the talking. Utilizing Ra, because Ra is that's a whole nother, I'm not even going to get into that, but Nebercher is the one that's doing the talking. And Nebercher is the deity over the limits. But what does that mean? These limits are necessary for things. In order for a thing to become a thing, or for something to come into existence, it has to have a boundary.
It has to be defined.
Exactly, it has to be defined. Anything that is not defined doesn't exist. And I don't mean defined meaning found in the dictionary. I'm talking about defined in terms of its distinction. So here's the thing, and again, I always like to give an illustration, verbal illustration, right? Because I know how this stuff may sound to people who hearing this for the first time. If you look at a picture, and all of us have done this before, if you look at a picture and there's an animal called a chameleon in the picture who is camouflaged in the picture, and nobody told you where to look, you're not going to see it because it's camouflaged. It's camouflaged against the background. So you're not going to see this animal in the picture. Why? Because it's not defined. It's not distinguished from its surroundings. Therefore, you cannot perceive it. But the moment that it moves, it becomes distinguishable from its background, and therefore it came into existence in your mind, and you can perceive it. But prior to that, it did not exist to you. Okay, so that's I'm giving a more practical example of what I'm saying here, is that existence needs a limiter for things to exist, to be perceived. Then that item exists, it comes into existence. And the process of coming into existence has also been deified, and it's called Keper. Keper means to come into being. And so the act of coming into being is a deity Keper. The owner of the limits around beings is Nebercher. That which all these things come out of is Nu or Nun. And so now you start to see the role that these deities play and how the Egyptians started to name aspects and states of existence. Existence itself is When, which is the inverse of Nu. When is existence, Nu is the unformed or that which unexists or don't exist. Nu, when. Existence needs existence in order for it to exist. Any given thing. And so Nu is the ultimate deity. There's nothing beyond Nu. I don't care what Egyptian text you read, you're not going to find any deity that's chronologically before Nu or Nun. In the unfolding of existence, Nu is top of the food chain.
And essentially, wasn't that uh, a female in the form of water,
No,
or what is it?
not a female, but it was likened to water. Now, water is used as a metaphoric explanation because Nu, the word Nu comes from a word that means inert. Nini became Nu, and this inert aspect is inert to everything, all of the possibilities. And here's where you get the entropy, where randomness is perceived, but it's not really random. We perceive it as randomness. And so you have this unity and multiplicity. But Nu was not a female, but it was likened into water, this watery abyss, because of the behavior of water. And so what the Egyptians noticed about water is that water can take the shape of anything that contains it. And so because Nu had this ability to bring about anything into existence in any shape or form, then they likened it unto water.
Mhm.
So Bruce Lee was an Egyptian.
Yeah. No, that's exactly what was on my mind. Exactly. But indeed.
But I just want to say, let me just explain the rest of what is on the screen. So to create, so now here's where it gets interesting, because the act of creation changes now. It should change in everybody's mind after hearing me say what I've been saying for the past 15 minutes, is that to create something is never bring it about for the first time ever. It's always taking the formless and giving it form. So Nu is this eternal and infinite, undifferentiated substance, for lack of a better word. It cannot be created nor destroyed.
Would we call that evolution nowadays? I don't, it just came across my mind, so I had to say it.
No. Kepler, what I described before would be evolution, because Kepler.
Okay.
So let me tell you something about Kepler, the beetle, right? Kepler as a beetle, the species of beetle that the Egyptians were familiar with, the dung beetle.
Mm-hmm.
When we see the dung beetle in the iconography, we normally think, or we normally see the beetle near the sun disk, near the disk, right?
Okay.
And hold up, let me see if I have that image here. Boy, I need to yeah, and see, I'm glad we're having this kind. I'm glad we're having, these open discussions is going to help to really design future conversations. And and I'm going to just start promoting the topics of those conversations, and whoever's interested, that's all good. Come on, chime in. Okay, I don't have a picture. It'll take me too long to dig it up and find it. But just think in your mind the picture of the scarab beetle, the dung beetle, on Egyptian walls and stuff like that. So you normally see the beetle near the sun, right? And people think that the beetle is pushing the sun through the sky. That's the common interpretation of that iconography. But that is actually not what's going on.
I didn't think that, but I'll just.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Let me see if I can find a picture, because like I said, I like to show these things as I'm talking about it. So let me see. Scarab and the sun in Egypt. All right. Okay, I'm just gonna pick something at random here. What's a good picture to show? I have one, but here this is a good one. I'm looking for one, an actual Egyptian one. All right. Well, anyway, because I got so many to choose from right here. But anyway, a lot of people will picture the sun in front of the beetle. Okay. And when you hear people talk about it, they will say that the beetle is pushing the sun through the sky, through the stations of the sky, in the morning, at noon, and in the evening. The scarab beetle is pushing it through the sky. But that's not the case. And here's why. It's real simple. The dung beetle does not push the ball of dung with its front legs. Okay. The dung beetle, matter of fact, here's a picture right here. Okay, so let me grab this.
He's balling. He rolls it.
Yeah, he rolls it, but he doesn't roll it with his front legs at all. So y'all can still see the screen. So let me just put this on the screen just so we all looking at the same thing. All right. Here we go. Okay, so that dung beetle right there is not pushing this ball with his front leg. See, the head is right here.
Mm-hmm.
My arrow here. The head is right here. The front legs are here. The dung beetle pushes the ball with his hind legs, his back legs. Okay. So when you see in the iconography where the sun is in front of the dung beetle, that is not the dung beetle pushing it through the sky or pushing it at all. What that is doing is that the dung beetle is bringing it into existence, because this ball behind him or her, or him, because the females ride it, but the ball was brought into existence in the front, because the head and the claws and the sharpness of the head is what shapes the ball into a sphere. So it's the front that brings this ball into existence, and it's the back that pushes it. And so when in the Egyptian iconography, when you see the ball or the sun or Ra in front of the beetle, it's bringing it into existence once again after it has traveled through the duat. And it's making it manifest again to start another journey.
Mm.
So Kepler represents evolution, which is the bringing of things into existence, the manifestation. So you'll see the word Kepler translated as evolution, as change, as coming into being, as manifestations or manifesting, all those different terms that we use.
Okay. Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Why do they roll that ball? I don't know a whole lot about them. I just know I've seen them before.
Oh, ultimately it's a mating and reproduction activity where they take the dung of animals and they roll a ball as big as they can get it and stuff to impress female dung beetles, and they roll it, and ultimately the female dung beetle lays her eggs within the ball and they bury it, and then the baby dung beetles hatch and come out of it. So you have this manifestation of life that comes out of this ball.
Okay.
All right. I mean, that's
so.
Nutshell.
So with that analogy, I think to me that kind of speaks to the coming forth, because you're bearing offspring and stuff like that.
Yeah, it does. It's we say coming forth, you're manifesting. You're manifesting something's coming forth. But all of these things never come forth for the first time ever. It just comes forth in the perceived shape and form that it's currently in. So if I go back to what I was showing before, is that to create, now we got to relook at creation, our concept of creation. Creation is never bringing about something for the very first time. Creations is simply putting a limit around something. So that's why I have here, to create something is to demarcate it, which is to limit it, which is to define it. So defining something is creating it. When you define something, you're simultaneously creating it in the true sense. And remember, to define something is also to create its identity, and its identity is its name. And so part of being is the name. The name is the container of the identity. So when I went through all the different parts and components, you have the kat, the kaibit, the ka, the ren, sahu. That ren right there is the identity, the container of the identity. Okay, and how and how we know it's a container as well. And like I said, I like to do this so that people can take what I'm saying and go ahead and dig deeper. The very word ren in the glyphs is represented by what's called a shin. And the word shin comes from the verb shini, which means to encircle. And what are you looking at on the screen is a circle. To encircle something is to ren it, or to name it, or to define it. And therefore, you're giving it an identity. And it is that identity that is responsible for immortality. And this is something that we spoke on Friday when Asar came on the channel. We were talking about the true concept of immortality, or the afterlife. The afterlife is really when your identity still exists continuously in the minds of the living. And that is your name.
Right.
As long as people remember you and your name, somebody alive that remembers you, you still exist. And that is immortality, or the afterlife.
Yeah.
And the kings of Kemet were guaranteed an afterlife, and it shows this because they put their name inside of a limiter, a ring called a shin. Most people call a cartouche. They encased it in a oval ring called a
The
shinu.
Shinu.
Right. The shinu. They call
Yeah,
it.
I was there for that conversation.
Right. So you have the family name and the throne name crystallized in a protective capsule called a shinu for all eternity.
Mm-hmm.
And usually the epithets that come after the shinu is jet, nehi jet mi ra, that you may live forever like Ra, eternally and forever like Ra.
Now that makes sense.
And it's right after the name now. It's right after the name, right after the shin. Eternally, and perpetually. You know, Nehi is the word for eternal. Jet is forever. We would say forever, ever. But the only way that you really live forever is if somebody who is alive at any given time in history or whatever remembers you. The moment that you do not, the moment that you are no longer remembered by somebody who is alive, you cease to exist.
Indeed.
Because what happens is you go back to nu or nun, formless.
Formless.
Now, would you say that this is why the kings, once somebody was bestowed the name or put as a ruler or a king, then they would get into building their monument and their pyramid where they would be buried after they're gone. And the whole point of the pyramid is that it is a structure that was to withstand for a long time, which means that they know that they would be remembered in that manner, as in people would see it for thousands of years with their names and all that stuff. So that kind of guarantees them as well that immortality.
Yes, and that's why most kings all throughout Kemet's history were responsible for building a monument. What is the word, Master Panel? What is the word for monument in the Egyptian language? Anybody?
Is it menu?
Yes. And so we translate it as monument, but what does it literally mean? What does that word really mean or literally mean?
Something that is stable, that which is stable.
Yes, it means established. And when you establish something, there's a connotation of permanency.
Hey, would y'all? I might be reaching, but can you punch up the glyph for that, just so we have like a reference? I don't have a reference, so if it's okay, I don't know if that's okay or not, but can you show it?
Okay, yeah. We'll show it.
Yeah, I can do it while you continue, just so makes sense.
So while we dig up, because I want to show what all you have to do is probably find a Tekken.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the Tekkens, which are called obelisk or the obelisk, they usually have the word menu on it because that's what it's function as. It's a Tekken itself, but it functions as a monument.
Okay.
Would it be what glyphs would they use? I mean, I know it would be the water ripple and then probably the quail chick, but the first one, would that be like when you see it?
It would be the men board.
Yep.
It'd be
And
the-
Amen.
yeah,
be-
the men. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
It would be the men board, and then like the Senet game, and then you'd have the new ball, the ball for new.
Okay.
You have like 3 of those.
MK.
Yeah.
If you remember when we did the piece with Hatshepsut,
Yes.
yeah, that first row, yeah, Manu was on there.
So just to kind of reiterate the glyphs that spell out the word. You have the men game board glyph. Then you have a water ripple. Then you have 3 what we call them new bowls. 3 new bowls, and that spells out the word menu. And menu is a word that means which is translated as monument, but it's something that has been firmly established. And that's what a monument is. And those are meant to last for forever, for a long time. And usually on monuments, you will find things that are meant to last a long time, such as names. That's why on obelisk, you'll find the king's names all over it and all around it. And usually monuments are built by the children of people who have lived before to keep them alive. So you'll see things where you'll see text where it'll say that I built his monument for him, or I built this monument on his behalf so that he may live forever. And so
Yeah, and that was what we had on the one that Chris is talking about, where Hatshepsut built the temple.
you talking about the Holy of Holies, that one?
Yeah, it had the same some built for. Yeah, amen.
Yeah, because it's actually, it's called the Temple of Del Bear something. It was the Arabic name for it, but it's actually called the matter of fact, this is the name of it here. Let me just switch back over here real quick. What we were supposed to freestyle on. I'm going to show you the name of it right here. It's actually kind of damaged, but you should still be able to see it. So look at this right here. You see this right here? Can everybody see that?
Q.
This is where I
Yeah.
check my mic. Okay. So this is the this word. This here is Amen Ipit Sut. Okay, so this is what people call Karnak or Ipit Sut. That's one thing, right? So this is a personification of that. So this is a personification of this temple. But over here is what we're talking about. This is the famous temple that Hatshepsut built, and it's genius. I mean, if you see it, if I had a picture of it, I should, because we went over it. Well, I think that was you and Mika that was sharing your screen, so I don't think I have it ready.
Oh, okay, let me see if I can find that.
But this right here is Jesser Jesseru, which is the Holy of Holies. Jesser means sacred or holy or sacred set aside. Jesser Jesseru is it's the Holy of Holies. And it's a temple that's dedicated to Amen. And that is the actual name of the temple. And in that piece that we did, you'll see the word Medew, where she built this for her father, speaking about Amen. And so that's an example of Medew. But going back to my point about the name and identity and the afterlife, we had a brief conversation. We got to revisit this though. The afterlife has nothing to do with good or bad, good versus evil. The afterlife or immortality is based upon remembrance. Does anybody who is living today remember you, or somebody who's dead? The moment that a deceased person is no longer remembered by anyone who is alive, that deceased person no longer exists. And so the goal to immortality and afterlife is to do something in such a way that you influence enough people to where they remember you and want to remember you. And so you can do something outstandingly good, great, or you could do something terribly wrong, and you'll be remembered on both sides. And we talked about this.
So
Like everybody looks at Hitler as an evil person, but yet everybody remembers Hitler.
yeah.
And so Hitler is still exists in the minds of the living. So it's not about good or bad, right or wrong. In that sense, good or bad, right or wrong are tools for the quality of life while you're alive, not after you're dead. So just remember that.
So
We can have
can I add to that? Would y'all?
yeah. Mhm.
It was crazy because I was having that conversation today, the same exact conversation, and the other party was painting the narrative as to like, would you rather, just live and get old, or die young, rich, and wealthy? And I was like, I want to be remembered, because it goes to what we're talking about. Like, what would you do? Do you want to live a life where you just live long, or would you rather make a name for yourself? But it was kind of in a rapper kind of context, because all the rappers are, you know, living that lifestyle and getting, you know, you know, uh, passing their expiration date, before their time and stuff like that. But it's just crazy to have that conversation.
Well, here's the thing. Yeah, so we talked about this a little bit too. Celebrities have the advantage towards immortality because they do something in today's time that's recorded on some form of media device or something, and it outlasts them, and it outlasts the average human lifespan. And so today a lot more people have access to immortality or the afterlife than people in ancient times, based on that simple fact. And remember what I'm saying. I'm equating the afterlife with memory, with remembrance.
Mhm.
So the more ways that you could be remembered, the more advantages you have. And so today, with us living today in our modern world, in our modern technology, a lot more people can be remembered a whole lot longer than in the ancient times, because we have photo albums, we have DVDs, we have digital cameras, we have computers, we could store pictures and events and even footage of people for a long time, and it could be passed down, passed down, passed down. So more people have access to the afterlife today than the further back in time you go. So the best way to so the equivalent of ancient times to what we have today as far as photo albums and digital media is carving in stone. Carving, not only just carving in stone, but carving deep in stone. And Ramses, I always use Ramses as an example. Ramses was known for carving his name deeply into the stone. And hold up, but about that word known, somebody, I don't know who just said it, renown. Renown, right? What does renown mean?
To me, I didn't say it, but to me, it just means your name rings bells around the, around the world.
Well
That's what
known, notorious.
It's like widely known, right? So
ring bells.
here's the lid that we did the other day, via Emicat. So this presentation was done. So we see this word here, menu, here, and then we have S. So we have her monument. The word here, menu, is monument, and S be her monument. So this is how the word looks, but this is more abbreviated. Most of the time, you'll still see a water ripple as a phonetic complement along with it. So let me just show you how that looks. The more complete word for it. So if I pull this up real quick, this is how you will see it most of the time. Like
So
that.
we back on the MN, the menu. We back on that.
Yeah, this is for the word monument. Exactly. So this is menu. All right. So this is the word monument. And notice on the lid, you see it, but without the extra water ripple there. Okay. So that will be menu. So I just wanted to show that. But now back to my question though, renown. So when we say when we use the word renown, most of the time, we're talking about somebody who is remembered.
Well known.
Right? Renown.
Respectable and reputable.
You say it again?
Respectable and reputable, well known.
Yeah, there you go. But not necessarily respected though. I mean, it could be many reasons why, but the core of the meaning of renown is famous. It could be infamy or just famous, but it's somebody that's known, right? So when anything that's renowned, it means it's widely known. So people who are renowned have a longer afterlife because there's more chances. The more people that know you, then the more chances that those people are going to remember you and pass on knowledge of you on and on and on and on. Even in Abrahamic tradition, Abrahamic belief systems, you have there's a passage in the Bible about the men of renown. I think it's Genesis chapter 10, somewhere around there. Where the Hebrews at in the chat. I know we got some Hebrews in the chat. Or the Bible. Where the Bible folks at? Where you at? This would be a perfect.
The Ilyich folks.
Well, somewhere in Genesis where the men of no Genesis 6, I said 10, 6, where the sons of God came into the daughters of man and produced mighty men of renown. Something along those lines. I used to know the Bible like the back of my hand. That's crazy. But Genesis chapter 6, where you had the sons of God coming in unto the daughters of man and producing the men of renown. So these are people who had reputation and were known. And I'm only pointing that out because that is what I'm referring to in terms of afterlife. The only way you can live after your life is in the minds of the living.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense also with the translation we have over there, because now that we put it together, it's like you build a monument to our father, so that she may live like Ra forever, so she can have immortality.
Right.
Then, when I was in high school, one of the books that we had to read was the Iliad. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but that's all about I'm pretty sure you guys are, but the Greek gods and all that stuff. And that's all they were about. But seeing, as we go through and understand the language, we were before them and we were on that level or beyond that level before they even started writing. So to me, that is impressive. And I kind of like, yeah, I feel a little bit bitter about that because, they're not teaching, no ancient Kemet in high school or whatever, but they'll teach you about the Iliad,
Yeah,
and
but
You talking about the Iliad and the Odyssey?
yeah, sometimes I get the name confused, bro, but you know what I'm talking about, right?
yeah,
No,
that's
no doubt. Yeah.
Yeah.
so. But check this out. Pretty much every indigenous culture around the planet has this concept embedded in their culture. It just goes under different understandings. So ancestral veneration is what I'm talking about. So when you go to an African culture and they practice ancestral veneration and they build a shrine to an ancestor, the point of it is to continuously remember the ancestor.
Hmm.
And by continually remembering the ancestor, you are creating that ancestor's afterlife. And that's just it. The ancestor has influence on the living by remembering the ancestor. No other way. The ancestor in and of itself. Okay, listen, man. I hope people who watch this, because look, we what 2 hours in. I don't know if anybody's gonna get to this 2 hour mark, but here's the thing: dead people do not influence living people directly, literally like that. I hope nobody believes that, but I know people who do. Okay, so how the deceased influences the living is one by the tumbling of genetics that we know today, DNA. Okay, we inherit bits of DNA from our ancestors. That's a physiological way of influence because we know DNA is the blueprints of amino acids and proteins on how your body should do this, that, and the third, right? So the ancestors or your immediate attached DNA ancestors literally influence you in that sense. But that's not what people are talking about when they venerate ancestors, because they just venerated a dead person, not necessarily their DNA linked person. So when they do that, what they're doing is they're doing the other stuff. They're trying to remember that person while in the land of the living so that they can prolong their afterlife. And the influence from that comes from the ancestors' identity and people trying to either learn from it, emulate it, and stuff like that. That's an indirect influence. But the ancestor itself does not from itself influence anybody. It's up to the living to allow that influence to take place. And in Egypt, we know this because we have texts that specifically say that. You got people who are buried and they have writings or statements along their burial tombs on the outside where the public has access to see it, where people are told to recite their name so that they may live, and so on and so forth. It says, do not walk past my tomb without mentioning my name. And so on and so forth, which brings into question that if the Egyptian society was so illiterate, then why are people writing things on the outside of their tombs so people could walk by and read it? And so on and so forth. So, we have a lot of things to consider and talk about.
Right.
But I just want to emphasize that, because we need to revisit this whole concept of ancestral worship and ancestral veneration, and leaving offerings and sacrifices to our loved ancestors and stuff like that. What is all that really, really dealing with? And hopefully people be ready for that kind of conversation.
I think I get it. You know what I'm saying? I think I do.
Okay, well, to kind of go all the way back though, I hope everybody understands about, this conversation kind of went in many different directions, but I want to make sure everybody understood, or at least has something to think about and put your mind on it, let it marinate for a minute. And if you got questions, or if you think what I was saying was crazy, listen, I got the link right there in the chat, but we're about to close this down. It's almost 12 o'clock. So we got 4 minutes, but I just want to reiterate a couple of things. Is that that one, these open discussions are very, very fruitful, because it, at least for me, because it lets me know by way of questions and people sharing things, it lets me know where people are focused, right? And so now I can kind of shape a future conversation about different things. So the whole idea about the self, not self, chaos, new, and the mind, the ib. We started with what the mind is, the ib, we showed the judgment scene and stuff like that, psychoanalytical tool, and all this, that the Amduat. Matter of fact, Niwa Sarah, you kicked it off by asking about the Amduat or something. I think you the one that kicked it off. So I'm gonna blame you for this whole conversation.
Yeah, that's one of those conversations that I'm always thinking about. I'm trying to study, and then when you ask, anytime I see you saying open, discussion, I always think about that and a few other questions. But I understand, because I know it can go a lot of different, directions, and then you might get people making videos, and that could go somewhere else. But yeah, I don't know. It's just something that I always thinking about. And anytime I get people on the panel, or even people in the chat, or, especially yourself, and I can ask those questions, I don't know, it can make for a good discussion.
Well, listen, anytime somebody bring up the duat, that always piques my interest, because, I have an interest in all the duat texts. I call it the underworld text. These are things I always talk about and always recommend people to become familiar with the proper understanding of the language and literary style, because a lot of things that are written using a technique of figurative right expressions. And you have the many different types of figurative expressions, from tropes to similes to hyperboles to metaphors and so on and so forth. And if people don't first understand that, they'll pick up these texts and read it and totally lose it, totally miss it. I know people who think that the Egyptians really believed that there were human beings walking the earth that had animal heads. And I'm like, man, you are just so off. But there are people who believe that. There are people who believe that the Egyptians thought this, that, and the third, and they didn't. And they let you know that they didn't within the language. And that's why I emphasize language. We deal with the language. We know the heart. We know a heart. Listen, the heart, I don't care if it's an animal heart or a human heart, it will never be lighter than a feather. the heart will always, a literal heart will always weigh more than a literal feather. So why do people believe that when they see this judgment scene, that that's literal?
Can you imagine if? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'll go ahead.
I was like, can you imagine, like 1,000 years from now, somehow they find, like maybe 2,000 years from now, they find like a cloud or some type of information, and they start to go over like rap lyrics or something like that, and people start trying to decipher, and they like, yo, he said, like, just think about some stuff that just popping in your head, like, and they start taking it literal, and they like, yo, the African Americans were, just start making up all type of crazy stuff.
Right. And I think Ujao usually uses the
Those are the
example of
richest culture.
butterfly mastover. Like 1,000 years from now, if some people read that and be like thinking that people are running around with butterflies inside their stomachs.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Okay, let me just address. So listen, if anybody in the chat have any quick questions, I see Sadiq has a question. I'm just gonna type the name of the author. Listen,
Wuja,
get any.
I got
You got a question?
I
Okay.
got two.
Let me just address that question. He asks, who is my favorite author or book speaking about the duat? Get anything written by Hornung. And I believe I spelled his name correctly in the chat. But he has a very good book on the underworld text. He has an abbreviated book that summarizes the multiple underworld texts, but then he has specific books for specific texts. The Book of Gates, the Book of the Heavenly Cow, the Book of the Earth, the Book of the Caverns, and all those kind of things. Get anything by him because he's very thorough. Now, obviously, I don't do the blanket, so I don't, any author, any scholars is capable of making mistakes, and we have to understand that all of us can make mistakes. So I don't push any particular author to be like, hey, this is all wise, right, and exact, this the end all be all. But in terms of references and things like that, his work on the Amduat or the Duat is definitely a must-have. So get that. His book is kind of expensive though. If you go to Amazon right now, it's gonna be like about $120, but it's worth it. All right, so that's the answer to that. But what are you saying, Kadeem? You still there? Kadeem probably got your Cricket wireless going.
Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you now. Go ahead.
Yeah, I meant to bring this up when Morpheus got off, but it's about the pituitary gland, and I heard something about I think it's a script or something about the Nitsubitsi, and I wanted to know if did they reference anything about the land of milk and honey? And does that relate to the pituitary gland?
No, not the pituitary gland, but there are different hold on, I'm sorry. I'm trying to get this book for the brother. I'm sorry, I'm gonna get this link in the chat. Listen, now, I'm not gonna recommend any books to anybody until you support the books that we have. Emicat has a book about the penmanship book, got the introduction to beginner's introduction to Sesh Netcher book. We have the rebuttal book. So if you don't have those books, shame on you, because I'm about to put a link to the Hornung book in the chat. So there's the book, there's a link to it right there. And I saw it was $118. Okay, so what were you saying? You said the field of the land of milk and honey. No, the Egyptians talk about they talk about something similar, but they talk about the field of reeds and stuff like that. You'll hear that a lot. But in terms of
So
in terms of connecting to the pituitary gland, nah, that's where you're reaching.
yeah, there's I heard something crazy about it. And
Yeah,
then
a lot of
my
people
second question.
want to validate that third eye doctrine and stuff.
Yeah, that's what it was, because there's mentioning something about silver and gold, and I kind of
Claudius
forgot.
and, and all that. But
This was stuff I was being taught. So
okay,
my second question was, does the did they get the glyph? Did they get the idea of the Ankh glyph from from the brain? And when I mean the brain, I mean the circle of Willis.
the circle of
You know
what?
what that is? The circle of Willis. It's this how your brain. I mean, it's this is you from your brain. Like under your brain is it looks like a web, and they call it the circle of Willis. And they claim that it looks like the Ankh.
Well, I have no knowledge of that, so I can't speak on that. Nope.
Yeah.
When you said circle of Willis, I thought you were talking about Willis from different strokes, Arnold Willis or something. But no, I have no knowledge of that, and I don't like to speak on something that I haven't heard myself. I haven't even heard anybody say something like that. There's speculation about what inspired the formation of the Ankh, the form it's in, but the Ankh itself is made up of rope. It's a rope, and
Yeah.
and there's implications of it being a rope. And I went over this when I went over the word Seker Ankh, because the word Ankh, a lot of people think that the word Ankh only means life. And what people have to realize is that there are several words that we pronounce and transliterate as Ankh, but they're different words, but they sound the same, and we transliterate them the same. You have a word Ankh that does mean life, and that's the most popular one. Everybody knows that. But there's a word Ankh that means sandal strap, the strap of a sandal, because it's referring to the rope that binds some kind of material to the bottom of your feet by way of your ankles. So it's translated as sandal strap. Then there's the word Ankh that means to take an oath. And that reflects the rope principle as well, because an oath is nothing more than you binding your words, you tying your words to something. You're making a commitment or doing a contract. A verbal contract is an oath. And then another word, Ankh, that means document. And that's also connected to the rope principle, because all papyrus documents were tied with a rope to prevent them from unraveling. And so you have this concept of Ankh that means to restrict, to bind something and restrict something by way of a rope. And so you have the word Ankh that means life. You have the word Ankh that connects to binding something, restricting its movement, tying it, and protecting. So you know what I'm saying? So when people think of these words and stuff like that, they just have to understand that not everything is just one way and linear like that. We got to be flexible and open-minded about all of this. So the pituitary gland, that doctrine about all of that stuff, that's really feeding into the pseudo side of the science. So you have the discipline of Egyptology, and at the birth of Egyptology, you had two branches that broke away. One is the more scientific, rigorous side, and the other side is the more pseudo side. And the pseudo side goes down the path that leads you to Madame Blavatsky, the Order of the Golden Dawn, and the Akasha records, and the golden and emerald tablets, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That leads
Yeah,
up to the modern day David Icke and all these other platforms, Gia platform and all that other kind of stuff, crystals and chakras and all that kind of stuff. Then you have the whole other side of that where the rigorous study is put in, where you find the material culture, you find the documentation of all the literature, the storage of all the literature, the translations and interpretations of the text, and trying to figure out the people and of themselves and stuff like that. So you got two different pathways, and one pathway is, you know, is obviously more glorious than the other. It's more fun to grab some crystals, to, you know, go to New York, walk past a table and pick up a couple of crystals that people sell, and while you're buying a crystal, you get a little bit of knowledge about Egypt and stuff like that, and maybe learn some martial arts moves and stuff like that. And then you're on your way to being, you know, an enlightened one. Or take the route that we prefer, engage the culture through the language, and then you can, you know, study and deal with things, you know, more, and start to really actually distinguish and discern the realities behind a lot of the figurative expressions. People understand that figurative expressions was a technology back then, whereas today it's fun and laughs and giggles, and we use it for entertainment. But back then it was a matter of life and death. The ability to store information without the medium of storage, such as computers, paper, and writing. Remember, writing is only 5,000 years old. Prior to that, people had to store information and pass it on from generation to generation verbally. And so they had to invent, not only to communicate verbal, but they had within that communication, they had to have storage. So they had to invent figurative expressions to store and code information. At the same time, speak to each other. So therefore, figurative expressions was invented out of a necessity, whereas today we take it for granted. So metaphors, all kinds of different tropes and stuff, those are actually mnemonic storage devices that was required back then. And that's how we're receiving. So imagine science, imagine the modern day science right now. Okay, let's take Neil deGrasse Tyson, for example. Everything that Neil deGrasse Tyson and his colleagues know right now, who are living, okay, all of them. Imagine if we didn't have writing right now. We had no computers, no writing, but they knew what they knew. How would they store it? How would they document it? They would have to invent a way to do it verbally. Right. And so the knowledge of these ancient days, the ancient generations of people, they had to store it and pass it. So they invented figurative speech, figurative expressions.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah. Yep.
So I know, like the other night ago, we kind of talked about some of the, not focused on some of the small stuff, but some of the bigger things that they did. And, you know, when I hear you talk, it's like one of the big things that they did is that they came up with a writing system, you know, because we talked about time, the calendar, and things of that nature, but we never said you know, the language. That to me, I think that would have to be in there too, some type of way, because it was just as equal genius to do that.
So yeah, I'm saying, like I said before, writing itself was not, it didn't come about until approximately 5,000 years ago. It's only 5,000 years old. Homo sapiens sapien is roughly 300,000 years old. Our species today is roughly stretching back to a couple of 100,000 years, and writing is only 5,000 years. So in comparison, writing is relatively young. Writing is as if it was invented, yesterday. Okay. So imagine the human species, the buildup and accumulation of knowledge for any given generation. It had to be passed on to the future generations so that the future generations don't have to start over from scratch each time. And so what I'm saying is that figurative expressions predate the literary styles and literature and writing. But the figurative expressions that have been going on for so long was recorded as writing.
So,
okay. So
hold on with y'all. I'm slow. So when you say figurative writings, what do you mean exactly? Because is that just an exchange of words and stories? Like what is it exactly?
Okay, figurative expressions is non-literal. So anything that's not literal. So a very, very famous figurative expression is the use of a metaphor, such as butterflies in my stomach. That phrase. So when people say that, they don't mean it literally.
Okay.
There's no
today
literal.
we call that analogies.
No, we call it a metaphor.
Okay.
That's a metaphor. So that's a famous metaphor. I got butterflies in my stomach. Now we are all familiar with that. But what is the reality behind that metaphor? The reality behind that metaphor is simply nervousness.
Mm-hmm.
So what the person is talking about is nervousness, but they expressed it by way of a metaphor figuratively. So what I'm saying is that you have literal things or real things going on that was documented in a style of writing that we know today as figurative. So we have to walk backwards and uncover the realities behind the figurative expressions. And you can't get to that point until you learn the language to even be able to know the figurative expressions. You got to understand the figurative expressions before you can even attempt to get underneath the hood and deal with the realities that are behind them. But let me address Philitentist, and he says, why are you saying pseudo? The word is mantics or mantia. The Egyptians used two forms of investigation, science and mantics. That is philosophy, divination, ritual, magic, etc. So let me clarify something. When I was speaking earlier and I mentioned pseudo, I wasn't talking about the Egyptians. Okay, so your comment doesn't apply to what I was actually saying. And I just want to make sure that's clear. So let me repeat what I was saying more clearer. What I was saying is that in the early 1800s, when the discipline of Egyptology was created, you had two sides of that, or really two things that were born in around the same time in the early 1800s. Once the writing system was deciphered, you have one branch that went the rigorous investigatory route, which we know today as Egyptology, the study of Egypt. But on the other side of that, you had groups of people that continued the what we call today pseudo route, because it's purported to be rigorous and scientific, but it's actually not. That's what I'm talking about. That leads, and I was naming a couple of things that led up to the Order of the Golden Dawn, the Theosophical Society, Madame Blavatsky, her adepts and all the people around that, the emerald tablets, the Akasha records, and the mixture of Indus Valley concepts and things with Egypt, and that whole gumbo soup of things comes out of that branch. Okay, because originally, prior to decipherment, there was always a split, which led to the decipherment. There were groups of people who looked at Egypt and its writing system and thought it was purely magical writing. Then you had people who didn't believe that, and found out that the beautiful pictures they were looking at on the walls was actually a visual representation of a language, and not just some magical symbols and symbolisms. And so that sparked the split. And so again, I'm not talking about the Egyptians themselves. I'm talking about way after the Egyptians were long gone.
Yeah.
This is in the 1800s AD.
Yeah.
that I'm
Indeed.
that I'm referring to. So I just want to clarify that for Philetitis. Now, when it comes to the Egyptians, you have to remember divination is really logical probabilities. Divination falls under the domain of mathematics, which is the domain of logic, and it deals with probabilities. And prophecy is really the recognition of patterns for the sake of predictions. So if you see a pattern occur, then you can likely assume that the pattern will continue, and therefore you can make predictions. And so divination and prophecy tend to be utilized together, just like science and math tend to be used together. All right. So I want to make sure that that's crystal clear. Divination is mathematical probabilities. Prophecy is the recognition of patterns for the sake of making predictions. That's what prophecies are. Now, the Abrahamic traditions will define prophecy as being inspired from some unseen spirit force called God or whatever. But it's actually the recognition of patterns for the ability to predict. Weathermen every day make weather predictions based on patterns, but we don't call them prophets, but that's exactly what they're doing. They're prophesizing the future weather conditions based on patterns that they see in the atmosphere and barometric pressures and all that. They call them meteorologists. That's what they do based on patterns. Okay, so I just want to make that clear. Let's see, pseudosophy. Okay, then Philetitis goes on to say, and science was to make sense of it. This is why I don't see why it's just called pseudo. That's scientism, not science. No, well, pseudo means fake, or fake. And the reason why pseudoscience has become a phrase is because there are people who pretend to present science, but it's actually not. So pseudoscience is the claim that something is science or has gone through the scientific rigorous process and be presented in that fashion, but it actually did not. And so you have pseudoscience, but then you have pseudo scholarship, where people who purport to be scholarly about their endeavors, but they have not gone through any process, but they still present it in that way anyway. That's pseudo scholarship. So that's how it was.
No scientific method.
Right. Okay. So Lightentis clarifies. So I hope it's clear now. What I'm saying is that if you study the era of time in the late 1700s and early 1800s, during the decipherment phase, when France and Britain were racing to decipher the Egyptian writing, right? You gotta look at the climate around that era of time. You have people who were in the intellectual circles that had money and stuff like that. They were giving their opinions about the writing and stuff like that. They thought it was symbolic. They thought it was magical. And they were saying that the Egyptians as a civilization, whoever can tap into that magic or what have you, can rule the world. And so it began a race and an interest to the point where it got funded by these people to try to decipher it. And so it wasn't until a group of people realized that those pictures, those pictorial glyphs, were actually a visual representation of a spoken language, of a language that the actual Egyptians used. That's what really sparked the achievements of going towards decipherment. Other than that, it was all a bunch of craziness. And that craziness still took root even when Champollion is given credit for the decipherment. So even though Champollion deciphered it, or at least he's given credit for it and stuff like that, you had that group of people that clung to that and ran with that. But then you had people who still denied that and kept the other thing going. And therefore you had these two branches that went on. And still to this very day, it affects us to this day, where you got people like Walter Williams, Sarasun Seti, Young Pharaoh, and other people who believe Blavatsky and all these Harapalo and all these other people, that the glyphs have never been deciphered, and that there's nothing to decipher, that it's a bunch of symbolisms and stuff like that. How can you put a sound to a picture and all this other kind of stuff? That's exactly what these other folks were talking about.
Those guys aren't Egyptologists.
No,
they're not. So
no, but they pretended. But they.
Well, that's for the people to discern and learn. Who not to get with and who to get with.
Well, a person with a name like Sarasun Seti, the assumption is that he knows something about Egypt. Because why else would you use an Egyptian name? Sarah.
Well, he would have to tell that because he flipped the script.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. That's why pseudo is attached to that, because you can't pretend to teach about Egypt for 15 years and then after those 15 years say the writing system was never deciphered. Then people gotta retroactively ask you, well, what the heck were you teaching for those 15 years? If the writing system never deciphered, then how do you know what you know? What? I mean, what? Like, how were you able to talk about Egypt if the writing system was never deciphered? Because everything we know about Egypt comes by way of the documentation that was left behind in the writing. Outside of the material culture with the burial sites and the pottery and all that kind of stuff, but the culture itself, the names, how you know to use Sarah then? Is that really Sarah? Sarah? or Sarah? And then Sutin is wrong. That's how you know people are dated, because the word Sutin is a poor rendition of the word Nisut. They don't understand honorific and graphic transposition. The word is really Nisut of the sedge, but they say Sutin because that's how it's written. But if that's the case, see, here's how you know people who don't know what they're doing really. They will use a word like Sutin because that's how it's written, but it's actually Nisut because it's honorific transposition. Okay. But if you ask them to pronounce King Tut, they will say Tut Unk Amen. They would not say Amen Tut Unk, even though that's how it's written. So there's inconsistency there. That's how you can show that people don't know what they're doing.
Right. Right, but I think, just in my humble opinion, I don't think you need to come down from your level to address these dudes because we already know, you know.
Right. But I hope people get my logic, what I just said. The word Suten is only pronounced and said that way because the sedge plant comes first, and that's the word Sut. And then you have the water ripple in. So they say Sut in, Suten, right? That is incorrect. The word is actually Ni Sut. The sedge plant is written first out of honorific transposition. Now you got people who would do that and don't believe in honorific transposition, which is why they do it. But then if you ask them to say saying King Tut's full name, they will say Tut Unk Amen. But when you look at his name, it's spelled Amen Tut Unk. So why don't they say Amen Tut Unk? It is because they don't know what they're doing. They don't know that. And hence the word pseudo scholarship. This is fake scholarship. This is faking to be a scholar in something when you're really not. And it leads up to saying the writing system hasn't been deciphered. That's all silliness. Because you wouldn't know to spell your name Sarah, Sutin, and then Seti. How you get Seti? Seti is from the king, Seti the first, Ramses' father. And Seti is a Nisbi, he who is of Set, pertaining to Set, follower of Set.
Yeah.
And that probably has something to do with one of his characteristics of having this kind of brown, reddish brown hair, which was attributed to Satuk, being the deity of the desert, and the Desheret, the dryness, the redness. But go ahead, what are you saying?
Now just don't come down from the sky, man, and address these people, man. It ain't, it ain't worth it.
No, we listen, we already did a book. We did a whole book. We don't address them, we address their teachers. So we rebutted Professor Walter Williams about those claims. So we already did a whole book on that. I was just saying that now though, because I wanted to clarify the two avenues when it comes to Egypt. A lot of what we see in the so-called conscious community is on the road that is the non-scientific, non-rigorous road. That's why people make up things. They say, anything out their mouth that sounds good and it's cool and all that good stuff. But that comes out of that kind of thinking where the writing is not important. It's just a bunch of symbolisms. You can look at the pretty pictures and you can just interpret it any way you want. Why? Because a picture is worth 1,000 words. Therefore, I can look at one picture and come away with 1,000 opinions and blah, blah, blah. People will do that.
Non-scientific.
Exactly. A non-rigorous investigatory approach. They would rather look at a picture and just come away with conclusions based on looking at a picture for a few seconds.
All right, so I got a question.
Okay.
So, can I speak?
Yeah. I said this will be the last one.
Okay. So, can you tell me what the scientific method means to you?
Okay, the scientific method is a procedure that is done in order to allow the person doing it to know when something is known. And basically, the scientific method is a method to shed away or peel away coincidence, chance, and error. By peeling away coincidence, chance, and error, the final outcome of that is being closer to reality. And so the scientific method, if used correctly, will get you closer to reality. And so that's what I always say. Science is two things at once. It is a set of tools that allow us to discern and to know when something is known. And then also science is the accumulation of knowledge based on utilizing those same tools. And so that's the domain of evidence. Science relies on evidence. And then you have another side of that, which is mathematics. Mathematics deals with logic, and it's the domain of logic and proofs. Because people want to ask for proof, but then they go to science. You can't do that. You ask for evidence and go to science, but you ask for proof and you go to math. So you have math, which are logic driven. That's why science and math are married at the hip. Anybody who studies the natural world will make use of both science and mathematics. And in Kemet, they did the same thing. In fact, they merged the two in a papyrus that's written by Ahmose called the Rhine's Mathematical Papyrus, where you'll see an outline of the scientific method, but yet it's in a papyrus dealing with mathematics.
Yeah. Haven't you covered that before?
Yeah, I spoke on it before. And the scientific method or the mother method of all of it is called Tep Hesed, and Tep meaning the best, and Hesed means to calculate, to count or to calculate. And so it's the best way to calculate, not in a sense of crunching numbers, but in a sense of discernment. Because when you calculate something, you're pinpointing and discerning. Like we use it today when we say, I'm going to take a calculated risk. Now, that doesn't mean that we literally crunch numbers. It means that I gave it a lot of thought. I put my head to it and the whole nine. I'm going to take a calculated risk.
Educated guess. Same thing. Same thing.
So that's the scientific method. So the scientific method is very, very valuable, and everyone should utilize it. Now, okay, to step away from that, above that is an umbrella concept of epistemology, where you what do you call it? Gain knowledge. And so science is one way to gain knowledge. Some people choose the route to gain knowledge through revelation. And that revelation is done by way of divination and some other things. And so some people choose to use that route. And but that has a consequence to it, because you can't try and test that route. Whereas on the scientific side, it's built upon that. Because remember, to try something means to test it. And usually divination, you cannot do that, because, like, for example, if you go to a diviner, if you go to a person who does divination and you get divination done for any given reason, simply do it twice, back to back, and you're going to get a different outcome.
Right.
If you have a divination question, if you have a question or concern and you want to get divination done on that question or whatever, and it's performed, whatever that outcome is, just have them do it again. By whatever means, whether it's cowrie shells and the tools surrounding that, or it's tarot cards and whatever tools that, or rodents, rats and stuff going through a maze, whatever divination tools are used, just have them do it 2 times in a row. You're going to see that it's going to come out an outcome. Now the people who know what they're doing, they account for all that. So I'm not trying to, I don't want to sound like I'm taking a stab at divination, because divination is a very powerful thing, but not for reasons that some people may think, though. But I don't knock divination, just like I don't knock yoga and all the other kind of stuff. I don't knock the Bible. I think everybody should have a Bible on their shelf.
No, I was just saying that's one of the things I picked up from you guys, the squad and stuff like that is the scientific method. Even though maybe I'm still learning it and I can't articulate it all the way, but I use it on my job because I'm a problem solver. So,
And that's the key thing. I'm glad you said that, because that's really what it's about. It's about problem solving, and the ultimate problem solver in Kemet is the conflict resolutionist, and that's the deity Jehudi. And Jehudi will be the
master scribe.
the master. Well, he's the master over scribes, but he's the master of divination.
Okay. And he got the ibis bird look, right? Take on his
He's the
skills.
master. But check this out. He's the master. I don't know if you picked up on it. He's the master of divination. He's the master of communication. He's a master of mathematics. And alongside with Sashat and Ma'at, who are usually, mentioned with him, but Sashat specifically, as well over science and writing and all that good stuff, liberal arts. That's Jehudi. Jehudi and Sashat are the only literate deities.
Mm.
You notice that? Like, people don't notice these things, that Jehudi is the only deity that writes and reads.
I don't know who Shashat is though. Not off top. Like I probably know who she is. Who is she? I have to see her. Who is Shashat?
Ooh.
Well, Sashat is a female deity that people think that is a branch of marijuana above her head for a symbol. Weed. I'm gonna show you a picture of it. Let me start.
I don't know if you was being funny or like being serious.
No, I'm serious. I'm dead serious. People think that her symbol above her crown above her head is a weed plant. They actually believe that. So let me just show you this picture of her real quick. You've seen it, and when I show it to you, you can be like, oh, okay. I'm sure you've seen it. But let me show this to you real quick.
Let's see.
I know sometimes it sounds like I'm being, it didn't download. Hold on 1 second. Let me just grab this one. This one's bigger anyway. All right, there we go. So you should be able to see it. Oh, it will help to get it on the screen. All right. That's the shot. You see her?
Yes.
Okay, so she is writing. She's actually marking a palm branch for calculating things, for calculating years. The palm branch is usually used to mark the passage of time, and so she's writing. So you only see her and Jehudi in the act of writing, pretty much. And she wears a leopard skin and all that kind of stuff, with some people interpret as stars on the fur coat. But the plant that's above her head, some people believe that that's marijuana or weed, and they say that because they want to smoke weed all day.
No, I was looking for some way to identify her when I see her. So the glyph above her head, is that how you identify her?
Yeah. And in the glyphs, if there's any glyphs around her, you'll see her name spelled, written out. But in this picture, that symbol above her head is very distinguishable to her.
Okay.
Yep.
And that is on a limb again. I'm thinking uh, a biliteral, or
What?
uh, her name is Shasette, right?
Sashat. It's
Shashat.
it's the feminine form of the word sesh. It's a female scribe. Her name means she who scribes. It's a
Okay.
feminine form of scribe. So sesh, and then the T on the end, sachet. But people say sashat. Just
Yeah.
like Amen is really Emin, but we say Amen or Amun and all of that. So and Hatshepset is not really the name. It's Shepset.
So when I see that glyph, I'm just supposed to remember that's Shashat.
Yes.
Okay.
Is she Hebrew?
Is that a question for me?
Is she Hebrew? What?
Yes. You said something about leopard skin?
Oh.
Oh,
She's having muted.
leopard skin, not the word namer. Okay, Ahati Mat says the scientific method was created by Tamahus, not Kemet. Okay, so let me address that real quick. The first correction is that Tamahus are Egyptian. Now I know what you mean by what you said, but we gotta correct, and when we know better, we do better. The word Tamahu is an invention of Champollion and Gerald Massey. Everybody that says Tamahu and they mean white people by Tamahu, they are followers of Gerald Massey, whether they know it or not. Gerald Massey is the one who promoted misinformation about the word Tamahu, meaning white people or people who are filthy. That's from Gerald Massey's book. I did a whole presentation on that. The word Tamahu is really a botched way of saying Ta Mehu, which is the delta of Kemet. So it is ancient Egypt. It's delta. And so remember, ancient Egypt was called Tawi. There were two regions. Tawi means two regions. Ta and then we being the dual form of Ta, the dual ending. And so Ta Shema'u is the valley and Ta Mehu is the delta. And together, that was the Nile Valley and Delta. So the Tamahus or the Mehetiu, those are people who live in North Kemet. So they are Egyptians. So when people say not the Egyptians, but Tamahus, I just like to always correct that. That's number one. Number two, the scientific method was not invented by the European cultures. All one has to do is to pick up Dr. Theophilo Benga's book called African Philosophy. I forgot the full title, but Dr. Theophilo Benga has a very good book. It's over 650 pages long, and it's all about African philosophy, but the focus is on the Pharaonic Egypt. And he talks about how science was cultivated in Kemet. And he has text and so on and so on and so forth, so forth. All right. So that's a reference. Get Dr. Theophilo Benga's book, African Philosophy, and read all about science and math and the scientific method and everything in that book. He did an excellent job covering all those things, showing primary sources for it. Making, primary source references are all throughout his book. Get that. And then also remember that we have to eliminate the word Tamahu from the conscious community's vocabulary. I don't care who people are, they use it, they're using it incorrectly. White people are not called Tamahus in ancient Egypt. Tamahus are the Egyptians themselves. They're the northern Egyptians. Okay. There's another word that sounds close to it, which is Chemehu. And the Chemehu or the Chehinu are the Libyans. And Libya is to the west of Egypt. Again, that is not, European culture or Europeans either. You have the Chihinu and the Chimehu. That's the upper and lower Libyans. Okay, so you have Tashmau, Tamehu, upper and lower Egypt. And then you have Chihinu and Chimehu, upper and lower Libya. Or Libu or Ribu, that the Egyptians called it. So just keep all that stuff in mind. So I just hope, people understand that. All right, so what else? Man, we supposed to get off here a long time ago, but we got 10 minutes. We're gonna go 11 more minutes. So let's see. What else? Matter of fact, it is disgusting to say Kemet knew about science and used it for their benefit. No, it's not. It's actually not. Science, remember the word science itself, even in Latin, means to know. The Egyptians were all about knowing. They shunned ignorance and they were all about knowledge. The word to know was rek. And requi is the stative form of the word rek. And it means that now that I have learned, since I have learned, now I know. I'm in a state of knowledge. That's science.
Who said that?
Period, point blank. No, I'm reading the comments in the chat. So, well, I'm just reading the comments and just replying to them. So our folks from the Nile used the blue lotus for the recreational activities with the ancestors. Ak. Okay. I'm not sure what to say about that, but yeah. The whole concept of Ak as ancestors is interesting. We got to have a conversation about that. Because, the word Ak means effective, an effective one. And so we got to talk about what does that mean? Effective of how, what? Aket, the place of effects. Aket, Aketi, he who is of the Aket, being translated as a horizon, but it's actually the place of efficacy. And it's very interesting. We got to talk about that. Let's see. Sadiq says we need a Sabite dome for Zion Lex. Yeah, I heard that a lot of claims are being made by the brother. Namir being Nimrod, Secular Ankh meaning bound for life. What else? Some other things that people point out to me. Ahati Mat says I use Budge Hieroglyphic Dictionary. Okay. How do I speak live to you, brother, to clear up miscommunication? Oh, the link is in the top of the chat. But we're going to close out. So, unless you want to come in real quick. But we're going to start doing this more often, So make sure you subscribe to the channel. So when we go live, you'll be able to tune in and connect. All right. And you'll be notified when we go live, because like these open discussions are kind of spread, not kind of, but they're out the blue. I just had time and I was like, let's just go live. And really our intention was to go over, Sister Mika had brought up a picture. And so we were just going to talk about the picture, but we didn't even get to that. And that's cool. I like these open discussions. What else? Emiket, Zion has been on pretty much 90% of our Sabite dome. He's on some next level with the Sesh Netcher butchering. Yeah, so learning the Sesh Netcher, it's not, you can't microwave this. You can't microwave this at all. And people tend to, for all the wrong reasons, This stuff is not impossible. It's not hard. It's just takes time, discipline, and you have to have a certain character about yourself to be humble enough to just go with the process and learning. You can't pretend to know and then try to debate and do stuff. It's just all wrong. And then be loud and wrong. It's just not cool at all. All right. Yeah, it's just not cool. Like Sashat is wearing a leopard skin. I guess her name is Namir, and she's really, Nimrod too. She's Nimrod's wife. All that's just crazy. All right, so we're gonna close out. So Lynn, I appreciate everybody tuning in, and like I said, this was like a out the blue. I appreciate the thumbs up. I just now saw the thumbs up. Yeah, if you enjoy the conversation, maybe we helped you pass some time. I know Mika's on like I said, her 28th shift. She hasn't been home from work since April 11th. So everybody give a shout out to Mika and give her some energy to last her shift, because I think her shift is over on June 6th, I believe. Because every time Mika's on, she's at work, boy. Yeah. So Ahati, Thales of Miletus is recognized for breaking from Kemet stories dealing with our ancestral spiritual nature and create science. Yeah. So Ahati Ma'at, I recommend that you read Dr. Theophilo Benga's book so that you'll know that what's being called science was practiced long before European Renaissance and even prior to all that kind of stuff. All right, so let's not let's just understand all this stuff properly, because Tep Hesab, the correct method in digging down, like I said, I gave now if you can read Sesh Medew Netcher and you want to read a primary text, go to the Papyrus of Ahmos, aka the Rhine's Mathematical Papyrus. Read it, and you're going to see math problems, but you're going to see a interesting outline of a method that corresponds or parallel to the scientific method about forming a hypothesis, making an observation, forming a hypothesis, your preliminary explanation for it, testing it, trying to falsify it, making adjustments to it if necessary, and then coming away with a conclusion, and so on and so forth. That is nothing to do with Thales and all these other folks. This is things that are done by the Egyptians. All right. So much so that it's praised, it's deified. Science is deified.
Indeed, and that's an easy Google search.
What, the Rhine's map? Yeah, the Rhine's Mathematical Papyrus. Yes.
Okay.
I also put a link to the video that we did on the scientific method, and Kevin is on the chat.
Okay.
Thank you.
Science is from the Greek. In the Medew, there is no translation for the word science.
That's not how it works.
That's not how it works.
Okay, I'm gonna recommend. Let me put on the chat as well. We have another video. What is it? What is a word? I think that kind of, because people kind of, when people say stuff like this, it's like, obviously we know the word science is in English, right? But the concept itself, like we say, the word elephant is English. But the concept of the elephant, or what an elephant is, you can find it in other languages. Like in Kiswahili, you'll say ndovu. So we know, ndovu, that's Kiswahili. And English is elephant, right? So when we say science, the concept, what science means to know, and that concept is there in all these other cultures. So we're not saying that the word science was grabbed from that particular, from Kemet, it was called science, but the concept of what science is there. So I'm going to put that link over there, so you kind of for what is it, Ahati Ma'at?
Yeah, definitely do that so that it is a reference on the chat. But to expound on what you just said, and to be more technical, the form of the word science is not an Egyptian form, but the concept that's connected to that form is to know. And the Egyptians had a form for that concept to know. It's called Rek. Rec. The word rec. Now, Ahati Ma'at, you said you used Budge's Hieroglyphic Dictionary. So what I want you to do is look up the word rec in Budge's Hieroglyphic Dictionary. As a matter of fact, I will do you a favor and I will find the page number for you. And I want you to look at this word and see what it means. And then I want you to look up the word science and see what that word means from the Latin, because science is from the Latin. And I want you to see what that means in Latin. And I want you to see what rec means in the Egyptian language, Rani Kemet. And I want to see if you can make a match for that. Okay.
Okay, and Ahatima, what do you think science is? If you can put it in the chat, what is science?
Yeah. And I think people need to revisit the video we did on translations. What does it mean to translate? What is the phenomenon that we call translation? Because I really think that people don't understand translation. In order to understand it, you have to understand what words are. And words are not what people think they are. It's clear. Words are made up of three components: form, meaning, and the link between the two. And like, for example, there's no Spanish word house. Now, when I say that, I'm correct and incorrect at the same time. Based on people's understanding, I could say there's no Spanish word house.
But
But
there is.
technically, there is this. So what I should say, to be more precise, is that Spanish does not have the form house, house, in its inventory.
Mhm.
But the concept side of the English form house does exist in Spanish, and its form, its matching form, is casa. So casa is the equivalent of the English form house. It matched both forms match conceptually. And once you get a conceptual match on the concept side or meaning side, the two forms can be put together with an equal sign, and therefore you have a translation. Translation means to move a source meaning over into a target, a meaning from a source language over into a target language. It's meaning, not its form. And that's what people have to understand.
Yeah, because basically saying that there is no such thing as science, or in the sessions, you could pretty much then just say there's no such thing as offering, in the sesh. There's no such thing as writing in the sesh, because if you're literally going to say those words, but the concept of it that translates to those are there, if that makes sense.
There's no such thing as scribe in the Egyptian language. There's no such thing in the Egyptian language. There's no such thing as kemet in the Egyptian language. There's no such thing as earth in the Egyptian language, land in the Egyptian language. If we're going to follow that logic, all of the English words that we're using, the English forms of these concepts, none of those forms exist in the Egyptian language. So if we're going to say there's no such thing as science, are you talking about the concept or are you talking about the form? Because the concept of science behind the form science is to know. And the Egyptian language has a concept called knowledge. The form simply is rec.
Mm-hmm. Right.
but no, what I'm gonna do though, I'm gonna pull up this Budge dictionary, because that's the dictionary that it said they use. So I'm gonna help out there by giving the page, save some time for them. I'll do their homework. And Yeah, so we're gonna do that. But in the meantime, anybody got anything else? Anything else? Anything else?
Nah, don't help them with their homework. Don't help
Okay.
me.
So,
We trying to
so
learn.
um oh, he says he's gonna call in now. Well, listen, um, we're gonna have to do this another time. Ahati Mati. We've been on for 3 hours and it's 1 o'clock in the morning. All right, so we can. You're definitely welcome. Next time we go live. So make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the notification button to be notified when we go live.
Yes. So I put in the link for the translation thing. It's actually a free course on Seba University.
Listen, he's in the chat. So
Okay.
Ahamat excuse me, Ahati Ma'at. Welcome to the panel, but we're about to end it. And so, we can pick up on this another time because we've been on for 3 hours, over 3 hours. So we just wanted to let you know. All right. So hopefully you can still hear me. And by the way, though, I promised to give you that page number in Budge's hieroglyphic dictionary on page 430, column A at the very top, entry number 1 is the word rec, and it means to know. And when you look up the Latin word science, it also means to know. So what I want you to do is compare both definitions, and you'll see that the concepts match, but the forms don't. And remember, translation is when you take a meaning from a source language and you move it. That's what trans mean. You move it over into a target language. So the concept of knowing in Rani Kemet is rec. You transfer that over into English, and it is our word science coming from Latin. All right. So hopefully that'll help out. And yeah. So hopefully everyone will understand that. And on top of that, read Dr. Theophilo Benga's book. I mean, that's a must-have. Everybody should have that book. I mean, I always recommend. People ask me what books I recommend. That's definitely on the list. Get that book. It's called African Philosophy. All right. Dr. Theophile Obenga.
Indeed.
Okay, so listen, I appreciate everybody who's tuned in, everybody who's on the panel. Hati Mat, I appreciate you coming in, but I just want you to understand that it's definitely late. We were about to wrap it up even when you popped into the chat. So we'll pick up on it. So table that and we could bring it back up. All right. So but yeah, it's 1 a.m. I'm on Eastern Standard Time. So gotta shut this down. And I appreciate everybody in the chat. And I'm gonna say Shem Hotep.
Hotel.
Okay.